So, A&B is the greatest archive anyone could ever ask for.
You know, of all the books I've read, of all the other online tutorials I've seen, this was the missing key.
Every video is like packed with this information that I would never be able to get anywhere else. So I would say this is the greatest resource for learning animation.
For me, A&B Animation Library is hands down the best animation learning resource that I've seen. I've tried all the tutorials, I've gotten all the books. I've never been able to really grow until I found A&B.
And it's incredible. I've only just begun it, but I definitely am getting more from that than I did from my 1.5 years of college.
I've noticed definitely that my animation has improved a lot, and it's more alive than ever. And what I also like about this animation training is that you also gain real confidence.
Real Animator Training Library is unequivocally the best resource for animation, 2D animation, traditional hand-drawn animation that I've seen.
So I wholeheartedly recommend the A&B Real Animator Training Library to anybody who wants actual knowledge and actual applicable concepts to create their own animation and to move forward in the field of animation and to set your work above those that are just kind of teaching themselves and not learning these tried and true classic concepts.
A&B is motivated by his students' successes and improvements. He's a great teacher, a great animator with over 20 years experience in the industry, so you can't really get much better than that. I strongly recommend him to anybody.
I'm thinking on how to put in words what I feel about it. I love that. It approached me from my dream of becoming an animator. Every cent I paid in there was worth it.
I like that the library is structured. I can go back and watch it anytime I want to, and he's just got so much knowledge. And I just highly recommend it to anyone who's out there looking to learn traditional 2D animation.
So thank you, MB, so much. And thank you so much for all you done for me.
So, are you going to join the library?
Hello Real Animators, and welcome once again to another A&B animation live stream. Alright, so I'm extremely busy doing shopkeeping, which is balancing A&B animation books, getting my tax return for the year in order, which is meaning that I'm not able to do as much drawing that I'd like to do, and I'm not able to be online doing the things the good part, the fun part of running your own business this week or next week, for that matter, as I'm also rebuilding the website. So taxes and websites. That's the part of being an independent artist. It can be fun. It can be creative, but not so much drawing. So I need to flex my drawing muscles. This is those rare times of the year when I'm not able to draw as much as I'd like to. So I'm taking my opportunity to carry on with this beast thing, willy-nilly here and there, which could have been done in a couple of days, really, to be honest with you. But no, it could have been done in 3 live streams. Could have been done. This is the 3rd one in 3 days. But we are where we are. So it's fun. It's good. Let's do a hangout stream. You can ask me anything you want while I explain to you the things I'm doing. And we got some people in the chat already making themselves known. We've got Cameron Allen Davidson Black. How are you, my friend? The lovely Hervonia Baker. Brittany Goddard, good to see you on my stream today. Any questions, you people? I know we're all quite acquainted, so any questions you have about anything, feel free to ask. Doing good here, Havonia. Okay, Cameron is continuing with his advanced quadruped exercises. That's great. All right, so without further ado, let me just that mic's on. Have we got a double mic going on here? Yes, we have. Right, let's just stop that. Right, we've got Sweet Cherry. Hi, what do you think? What or how did the 9 old men get so great at animation? The 9 old men were the founding. They weren't necessarily the founding fathers, but the reason they get great is they basically were there at a time when animation, you know, Winsor McKay was doing his Gertie the Dinosaur. You had Oob Iwerks and Mr. Disney himself fiddling about with Oswald the Rabbit and Mickey Mouse. But these were the pioneers. These were the people, you know, even when you have a country, like let's take America, they're always going on about the founding fathers, right? So you had these founding fathers, and then you had these pioneers that take it somewhere and move it forward. So the 9 old men were, along with Walt Disney, who wasn't really very good at drawing or animation for that matter. He had ideas. He was a true entrepreneur, an idea businessman. And he says, how far can we take this cartoon business? Motion picture cartoon, he used to call it. So then he had these group of artists that were working with him. He said, nah, you got to go to school. You got to learn to draw. You got to learn to be real artists. You know, you got to learn anatomy, life class. We'll bring in painters. We'll bring in, because that's what capital does in the right hands. People don't actually know. You got all these people against Walt Disney. They don't actually know that Walt wasn't very good with money or anything like that. Walt was just an ideas man like Jim Henson. It was his brother Roy that balanced the books and saved him and got him to be able to do the things that he wanted to do, his harebrained screams and stuff like that. So it's a great entrepreneur, a great imaginary force which is bringing together all the best artists around the world. And at that time, art was not really, art was the technology. Although the technology, he was building things like the multiplane camera. So the technology was physical cameras and things like that to shoot, to photograph and reproduce the art. They weren't depending on technology to create art. He tailorized, he got inking specialists, you know, the ink and paint department. So most of them were women. They could do really nice, you know, the animators would clean up on paper, but then these gals would literally get their Indian ink or their ink and they would do the fine inking on the clear acetate cell. Yeah, they invested time and energy into the right things, and they started to discover, built massive research libraries studying, not just like, you had guys like Muybridge photographing every frame of the horse's step and things like that, but you also had, they built massive research libraries to, what does it look like when a droplet of water goes into a pool of water, and you see all that lovely effects animation in Fantasia, you know, and they studied classical art. They studied abstract art. Pablo Picasso was a pioneer at the time. Picasso was interested in cubism, which is creating the illusion of 3D on 2D, so you have multiple faces, which really helped the minds of these animators think about shape shifting. Fine art and animation were going hand in hand together. Walt Disney was friends with Salvador Dali. They were working on something called Destino, which has sadly been butchered and produced out there by the new buffoons who were responsible for that. So basically they had, you know, they were living in great pioneering times where art movements were you know, being put up on there. Fauvism, modernism, postmodernism, and they were fusing art with animation, because cartoons were like newspaper strips. That's what cartoons were. They were political little things at the bottom, and they wanted, when they made the cinema, they wanted the cinema to be like a a newspaper. So you had the news, you had a cartoon, you had all those things on there. So, but then the whole thing, then movies started to become a thing, and then telling stories started to become a thing, and that's where the whole grandiose vision came. So all of that energy, all of that powerful creative energy were like in harmony. It's what if you read success books, the most popular one is called Think and Grow Rich, and it talks about something called the concept of the mastermind. One person alone can do great things, but if multiple people alone were together, it's like having a render farm on a computer. If they're all in harmony, focusing on one goal, all that energy is going towards that one goal. So it's bringing together a group of great, amazing artists at the top of their trade, all working together for a single cause, all solving problems and challenging. It's part of the synergy, the harmony. And because basically Walt Disney at the time was not so interested, it sounds silly, but it's true, he wasn't so interested in making the money as much as putting out his vision, which is why he took such a risk with Snow White. Nobody made a big motion picture cartoon, and all the money men were calling it ridiculous. Then when it was a success, he refused to repeat it, and he went for a much darker film called Pinocchio. A much darker film called Pinocchio, which tanked. And after that tanked, what does he do? He goes and makes Fantasia. I'm going to bring high art classical music to the masses, and people are going to watch it. And people are saying, what are you doing? And it doesn't make any money at all, but it's all experimentation. So it's forging the craft, forging the art and all that. Then the wartime hit, and then the studio took a dip, and they had to make fun, cute films like Dumbo, which I love, by the way, but were less so much about the pioneering. Then he starts saying, let's make a fairy tale, but we won't make it like pretty Snow White. We'll make it angular and cold and base it on a ballet. Let's make it Sleeping Beauty. Let's bring in this guy from Europe, Even Duro, to be the whole art director. And all the animators are going, I don't want to draw like that. But now everybody today, all this Gendy Tartakovsky, Samurai Jack, all this kind of like stylistic background, all based on Even Earl. So basically, he was constantly bringing in people, fresh people, to constantly... The studio tried to do it in later years with Gerald Scarfe and all this kind of thing, but it was just too much of an entertainment Broadway musical machine. It had dumbed down. And of course, the whole training system of animators within the studio system was different. The 9 old men ruled the roost from basically the 40s all the way to the late 80s. That's 40 years. They weren't allowing Glenn Keane, John Pomeroy, Don Bluth. They weren't really allowing these guys to animate until the very end of the 70s, when the Rescuers came about, and Pete's Dragon and the small one. These guys had to be assistants and juniors and work under the 9 old men. So these guys were basically a lifetime of legendary development and working as an artist. It's like Mozart, Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, Stravinsky, all working together, you know. Just imagine that, and that's what it was like. Then you had the new guard, who were great and amazing and fantastic, but it's always like they were, for me, as I was young at the time, I worshipped those new guys like Andreas Deja, Glenn Keane, John Pomeroy. I still love them, but they were always kind of in. As I look at it now, when I look back at that period, they're in the shadow of their masters. Like even with Treasure Planet, Glenn Keane is trying to take Captain Hook test and do a Frank Thomas style thing, studying John Lounsbury drawings, which is exactly what I'm doing now. So basically, that's my belief of how the 9 old men were so great at animation. They basically pioneered it, took it to an exceptionally high level, and expected everybody else to live up to those standards. Now you get other great animation which is completely in different styles. There's some fantastic anime out there. I personally don't think it is as sophisticated as what the Nine Old Men were doing, but it's very different and it can't really be compared. It's moving towards a trying to be live action kind of sensibilities, comic strip style thing, and that's when you move away from that and you try and forge a different thing and take that craft as far as that style as far as you can take it. So that's a great question, by the way. So thank you. Really, I just blurted out a lot of stuff that was probably in my subconscious from studying this stuff and living my lifetime obsessing over hand-drawn animation, and it's been fantastic going into my hard drives and blurting it all out. Awesome. Right, so let's get on with this. Let's do a little drawing. I haven't drawn for almost a week. The last live stream was when I drew. So okay, so we broke this down a little bit. So I said how we went up there to the smile. So now I'm going to break down this section. So we're going to go from here to here, right? But before so the first thing we're going to do is the expression change. Why couldn't they step out of the shadows of the Nine Old Men when they were students of them? Because the security of working under them, and you know, it's extremely hard. I don't know. I mean, it's, as I said, I'm not them. I only have an opinion. When I talk about the rules of animation and the laws, that's fact. When I talk about the Nine Old Men and their students and what happened, that's just my. I weren't there. I wasn't there. I was born in the late 70s when The Rescuers was coming out, and Don Bluth directed the animation, and Glenn Keane and John Pomeroy worked under him. But I wasn't there, so I can only read and have opinions of it. So I can't really give you a real answer on that. So I just like to remind you of that fact. Right, so now he's going to have a little kind of blink here. So if I want him to blink, I want it to be subtle. Right? So we're going to make just his eyes move. But if I look at what's happening to his mouth, it's dropping, right? So I'm going to turn the next panel off. This is how to do subtle animation. No next panel, right? And I'm going to actually pretty much keep his eyebrows and everything in the same place. I'm not going to do anything different with his eyebrows, right? But here's where I'm going to do something a little bit different, right? I'm going to use what we call a favor. I'm going to bring his bottom lip up. This is all what I call light box animation, right? When you're working with favors, right? You can see I haven't drawn for a while. I'm just making a load of pen strokes to get familiar again. Right, so I'm bringing his mouth up very slightly. Right. This is a good way to get back into the drawing. Just make lots of little marks. And I'm going to bring his nose. Now the nose, we don't want the nose to feel like it's shrinking in volume. So pay attention. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm distributing mass, right? I'm using squash and stretch to make it a little bit fatter. And it's going to make it feel like he's breathing, right? It's going to make it feel like he's breathing in his nose. It's going to add a new dimension to the animation, right? This is what real subtle animation's about. So a lot of people who are heavily into anime sometimes get defensive when I say that anime is in many ways lazy and economical and budgeted, and it doesn't really have, they say, well, it's not supposed to be all this over-the-top cartoon acting. It's supposed to be subtle and like real life. Well, the thing is, if you want to be subtle, that's even harder, right? You don't just hold a drawing and put a hair cycle on a wave and have the eyes blink, right? You do subtle things like just very subtle little blinks and facial muscle movements and stuff like that. So that's exactly what we're doing here. So I'm gonna opt to keep his brows pretty much as is, right? And it's not necessarily the fault of Animate, because one, that it's stylistically based on comics and it's got a very static look to it, and two, this kind of animation costs a lot of money because it takes time to do all these little movements. I mean, this little movement here on 2s would be something like 6 drawings up and down, so 3 up, 3 down, because it's 6 times 2 is what? It's 12. It's half a second, and in my mind I'm going to spend half a second with this little blink, right? So these can pretty much, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to warm up my drawings now, as I, well, when I can't do it here. What I meant is like he's not really going to be moving these things, so I'm going to keep them on a hold, right? So now I'm just, a good way to get your drawing loose and started is to actually do some tracing, right? So I'm just tracing these horns and trying to get my accuracy of line placement pretty good, right? That's a good way to loosen up, right? Get your hand-eye coordination into gear, right? We're getting there, we're getting there. Right, so he's going to come up like this, and then he's going to look there like that. So you can really see that that little movement really helps the expression change, and I'm going to start to build some of that in there like that, because we're going to, if you guys want me to deviate from drawing the beast and help you with some of your own drawing problems that you're going through right now, feel free to ask, and if I can help away, I can come away and do that. Right. So the beard is going to come up just a sliver, right? And believe me, drawing this is so much better than using place and trace, and that's what the limited animators just don't understand, the lazy mentality. The place and trace or is just the same as using software to slide a static drawing, right? Which gives it exactly that static anime look I was talking about. Now, as he's lifting his cheeks here, there's going to be a subtle curl in his ear, not too much. So I'm going to keep the ear at the right pivot point and just subtly raise that to show that those facial muscles are working, right? And what it'll do is it'll give this effect that's not uncanny, right? That's not like weird AI just using kind of like rotoscoped human movements from a library and pre-recorded, because they'll be, it's all intuitively drawn, and it's actually wrong, right? It's not how in reality it would move, but we get the feeling feels right? Whether it's right or wrong is a matter of perception. And if your perception is that feels right, now I'm going to use this to train my hand-eye coordination, big swooping strokes, right? As long as that feels right, then it is right via your perception, right? Oh, that feels natural, right? Which is why people have this uncanny valley thing. It's like the thing may be moving exactly the way a human would move. It's motion captured, it's rotoscoped, but it doesn't feel right. Then there's a problem, right? The feeling is the secret, right? So I needn't trace this. If I was doing an instructional video, I would be just wasting time. But I'm doing this for myself because I'm getting my drawing hand intact. Now I'm gonna, on that rare occasion, rotate because I want to do a nice swooping. Alright. Get that in shape. We can do that here as well. Really try to, like, I used to spend my days as a teenager in mathematics class and physics class, just going over the lines in my textbook to help me have a better line as an artist, because I really didn't care about those subjects. I wish I did now, to be honest with you, because they really help with business. But there's a time to learn everything. Right, but at that time, as with the time now, I was obsessed with hand-drawn animation. I'm going to look at the chat when I finish this drawing. Right. So all of this is on a hold, and I can keep it on a hold. But as I said, I'm using this as an opportunity to get my drawing into gear. This to me is like doing 100 push-ups, right? It's simple. It only takes a short amount of time, and I've reconditioned my system to be fully functional. Right, so let's turn this way. There we are. Don't care if I'm a little bit off. I'm trying to be neat without the scratch. There we go. Right, okay. So he's gonna blink and do that. So we can really see, now when I scrub that, you'll really see the effect that takes place about that. Let me just, I don't like the blink I gave on his eyes, so let me just yellow that eye and yellow that eye. And let's not do the blink with the light box on, because that's one of the errors. So I'm going to give him a bit of a bottom lid, which is something that is important, and then I'm going to close the eye, right? And I'm going to give him a little bit of a lid there, like that. There we go. Right. So we have a better blink effect. Now I'm going to show you how the world of difference that makes to just having the drawing on a hold and blinking like blinking stepped into the sun. Right. So he's here, right? He goes up there like that. He turns. Now we're going to slow into that, but you can see that little mouth gesture and the nose gesture really helps that mouth change shape. So what we've got here is what we call, now look at the screen, because this is a subtle use of it. So this is when you're not just doing it with your little flour sack to do it to just say before a big move or before a head turn. We're anticipating the change in expression. So this is the law of anticipation, right? One of the 6 laws of life. We are going up in order to come down, right? Going up, and the blink is happening there. So we're not just anticipating the change of expression in the eyes, we're anticipating it in the mouth. All right. Yes, there was, during the time of the 9 old men there was, and there always is, no matter what project you're working on. Even people working in on a shitty Netflix show are all working together, you know, to bring forward an agenda, shall we say? Right? Okay. Right. So let's move on to the next one. So actually, what we need to do here before I drop into this, right? We're going to talk about slowing in and slowing out. So we've got this head turn here, and we kind of slow into it with the smile. But before we go here, I want to slow into this, right? So I'm going to create a new, I need my next panel for that, so I can see. So I'm going to look at the arc path. The arc path is quite simple. It's a basic one. So we're just gonna, I'm just gonna bring this on a half, right? So what am I doing here, right? I'm gonna look at the master shape, which is the silhouette. So I'm gonna look at these shape, the outline shape, right? And I'm gonna see where those outlines are going to be halfway, right? Everything's halfway from one to the other, but I'm thinking about the outlines coming through, right? The master shape, right? This is going to be halfway to this, right? This is easy. The body is a cop-out on this animation, to be very honest with you. I will look at the arc of this thing here. So this is going to be here, right? Halfway, this is going to be here, right? I'm not going this way, I'm going this way, I'm following an arc, right? So that'll help me find the halfway point here. So now I'm starting to cut into the master shape using what we call the secret science of shape simplification, right? Which is what we're doing right here, right now. And we're going to have this here and this here. Right, okay. So now we're going to look at the ear. So the ear is going to arc. It's not going to go in a straight line, right? It's going to finish its arc. And this ear is going to be half through there. The neck is there like that. All right, so you see, I've got like I've now figured out the motion path, shall we say, the arc of motion. Silver Scribbles, how are you, sir? I was wondering if you had a chance to look at I haven't had a chance. I'm so sorry, Silver Sun. I haven't even had a chance to draw. If you know, there's some major changes happening to the AMB website, and there are issues with the checkout regarding individual archive purchases. You can still get the bundles all fine, but the archive purchases, you're going to have to send me a message, because the software is not giving the person the option to actually buy anything. So people are messaging me like, I want to buy the anatomy archive, but there's no checkout button. So I'm saying, I will send you a link and we can do it that way. So I've got to solve a lot of technical issues with the store, and also the annual taxes are in the way. So don't really, sorry Silver Sun, I did say that I'll look at it if I can. I'm gonna think about putting an option on my website for people to have one-to-one sessions with me, but just understand that that's gonna cost, right? So if you'd rather spend that kind of money on some expensive clothes or a weekend away, rather than speaking to an experienced professional in how you can improve your work, that's up to you. And I'm not saying that about you, Silver Sun. I'm just making sure people understand the value if they're going to commit to something, because a lot of people just don't, because You get a lot of you get a lot of free stuff on the internet, but it's never really stuff that you can really personally apply unless you channel it on an individual level. So I'm going to think about putting an option on my website for that, because obviously that will that will instigate things to happen faster. I mean, I have so many people reaching out for me for help, which is why I do these live streams on YouTube. I could be a lot faster and finish this in my own time, but I haven't streamed, so let's hang out and watch me finish it. Right, so we've got the head turn happening here like this, and now we're gonna go in and find all those little things. So everybody says, how do you keep volume? How do you keep volume? Look, I'm gonna show you how you keep volume. I'm gonna think of everything as an arc. So the eye line is here and the eye line is here, right? So I'm gonna find the middle eye line, right? And I'm just going to rough in the halves of those eyes, right? Now that helps me find the nose point, right? Because the nose middle is going to be somewhere like this, right? And the nose middle here is going to be somewhere like this, right? So you see, I'm mapping it out, but I'm using the light box a little bit, but then when I really want to keep volume, I will not use the light box, right? So it's extremely important you understand that, right? I'm using a light box to find my halfway position and my arc, right? To map out things, and you get lost if you start depending, like even now I'm getting lost in the lines as I'm starting to look on the light box, which is why we need to stop with the light box, right? I'm just intuitively feeling the rest of it halfway, right? This line is going to be here. This beard is going to be, the beard is here. And the beard is here, right? So the beard is going to be here like this, right? And then we've got something like that, right? So I have mapped it out, but there's no guarantee that that's keeping volume, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to forget the light box and I'm just going to flip, right? I've got enough information here to flip. Now I'm starting with the nose. Now I'm watching the shape of that nose, right? I'm just watching the shape of that nose. And I'm not trying to make an exact copy. This is another thing where people get it wrong and they use the software to just slide the head, right? In order for that arc to work, right, the proportions are going to be a little bit different of the placement of things on his face, right? So here I've got more this nose, right? I've got more this nose to work with. That's what flipping back and forth between the various frames, right, is gonna help me be the judge, right? You have to make judgment. See, what this whole AI thing exposes for me is a lot of people get sensitive and accuse me of all kinds of things like narcissism and arrogance. Simply because I point the truth out regarding people's ability and skill, right? So AI, for example, is exposing the incompetence of people who primarily animate in software and don't use these things. It's like a guy who never lifts weight. He will never get strong. Or if he only lifts the minimum amount of weight, he may be a little bit strong, but he'll never really grow. You grow with experience by keeping on doing things, right? That's a natural law of the universe. Some people want to call that narcissism to defend their own insecurities. Okay. All right. By your definition, I'm a narcissist. Right? So basically, but the fact of the matter is that if you are constantly looking to cut corners and not develop your eye to see things, then your animation is never going to be technically proficient. It's just going to be cookie cutter stuff which AI can easily do, because that's what AI does. It looks for the easiest, shortest way of doing it, which is why you get this very robotic, bland animation when it's trying to do cartoons, because it animates like puppet and rig people. Or you get animation that's simply taken motion captured of a person and put a cartoon avatar on top of it, which doesn't really work for hand-drawn looking stuff, right? Doesn't really work for hand-drawn looking stuff. This style of animation that I'm doing has its own unique way of moving. And that's why Disney, everybody said it was Disney. It wasn't because of the drawing, right? The drawing, yes, it had a drawing style, but it was also the movement style, right? But now people have forgotten this movement style, and they've got used to, and it's Disney's fault, right? They killed themselves, the executives of the company, in search, which is what I was talking about earlier. Walt wasn't interested in repeating himself, right? He didn't want to make sequels. If you read The Illusion of Life, he was vehemently against sequels. And he considered another fairy tale a sequel. He didn't consider another Snow White a sequel. He didn't want to make another fairy tale. And when he did, he tried to make it different, like Sleeping Beauty. And then he made Cinderella. And then he kind of lost interest and said, you know what, I'm going to go and build worlds. I'm going to go and build Walt Disney World and Walt Disneyland. And I'm done with all this stuff. And he left it to the 9 old men, and he would come in and look at it and say, oh, that's working, that's not working, right? So Disney basically created this bargain bin of Aladdin 2, Aladdin 10, Aladdin the series, all animated by people who really shouldn't be animating those characters because they don't deserve to. And again, if that makes me sound like a narcissist to you, then basically, look, everyone deserves to do anything, right? A child deserves to play football or basketball, but you wouldn't have them in the NBA. You know, you got to earn the right to be in the NBA, right? So a lot of these TV companies and studios mass producing this is really, you know, then Disney became about the drawing. Oh, that's Disney drawing, right? Dodgy renditions of Tinkerbell on toys, which look nothing like the original Mark Davis character. Look more like Barbie, you know. So they killed themselves. They're responsible, you know. They murdered themselves. So as ye sow, so shall ye reap. But the kind of thing I'm talking about here is the original craft of animation, when the pioneering 9 old men, or even, you know, to be fair, the Renaissance masters like Glenn Keane, Eric Goldberg, Andreas Deja, Mark Henn, you know, people like that did their best to push it forward. You had John Pomeroy at Don Bluth, you know. So that type of animation was when they cared about it. And then came the era of South Park, Flash, software rigs, and it always amazes me when I'm online and I'm literally bombarded with questions about the software, not about this amazing, not about how on earth can you come on a live stream. I'm going to repeat this because I got some hate for saying it. You know, the truth. There's nothing more painful than the truth, right? Instead of saying how on earth can you come on a live stream and casually talk and animate one of the hardest characters there is to animate, the beast, as if it's nothing, right? They're like, hey man, what software, right? So society, artists have been conditioned to surrender their power, their real, true power of creative ability, the highest force of creativity that there is, if you don't believe, you don't believe, but for me it's the creator, right? If you don't believe there's a creator, then use it as an example, as Einstein used it, right? Einstein used the term God to explain the inexplicable, right? The creator, right? So even if you don't believe, right, that's the highest form of creation. And the fact of the matter is, the human mind, you can't get around it. The human mind built AI, and AI is drawing all its information from the recording of the human mind, right? So the human mind is tuned into something called the imagination, which is pretty inexplicable. So I like to call that the mind of the creator, right? And you are tuned into it, and that's your most powerful superpower, right? Even a guy who goes to the gym and has got Mr. Strongman muscles and is, able to pull a truck with a belt around him, in those strongman contests, that's nothing special. The truck, another truck can pull a truck, So the machine built by the man's imagination, right? So that guy is not using his real superpower, right? He's using a superpower of his creative force, but it's been deliberately shielded from you so that you depend on outside sources, right? And you all the time think the software is going to make you great. The software is going to give you significance. The tool is what's doing it, not you, right? So I'm here to remind you, which is what real animator training and the real animator system is all about, right? I'm here to remind you that there ain't nothing on this earth that's more powerful than you, right? And if you choose to surrender that power and put it in the hands of something else, that's your choice to do that. So you're the one that's delegated the power to the software, right? So think about it. Just sit and think about it. Of course, here I am calling you the most powerful being in the universe, right? Your universe, but of course I'm a narcissist, right? Just because I'm talking about something I've dedicated my life to, almost 50 years on this earth, I've dedicated to perfecting and honing the craft of hand-drawn animation. But how very dare I talk about people that aren't my opinion, my professional, labored, considered opinion of people who are executing the craft in a lesser manner, So I will continue to express myself, by the way, in the way that I deem fit, because my brand is called Real Animator Training, and what you see is what you get. Without authenticity, there's nothing in this world. The only thing you can trust is authenticity. And if your expression is not authentic, then it's a deception. And the last thing I want to do is deceive people who are going to invest in my learning system and the things that I have to offer. We need to get off on a good start. This is who I am, right? You harmonize with it or you don't, right? There's plenty of other people out there waiting for you where perhaps you can work together and do something great. I'm just stating that on my live stream because of a comment I received from somebody who, I don't know if they were serious or not. They were pretending through my instinctive judgment that they were going to buy my product, but they couldn't take the narcissism, as they want to call it. That's fine. I was expecting this kind of answer. It's a lot you got to get done. It's no rush. Just thought I ask. Okay, hello, Cameron. Okay, so we're still kind of quiet on the chat, which is good. You're all just hanging out while I do this. So here we've got the slow-in breakdown there, right? So we've got, he looks up, so we've got the slow-in there, right? So now, and we can see that the volumes are absolutely fine, right? And the horn head turn, the turning of the head on the horns works. Now here, just like here, we're going to use a lot of time to slow into this smile. We're going to slow in a lot here, and then we're going to hold for maybe about 6 frames, and then we're going to change expression. This is going to be the lead to the slow out, right? Which then drops, right? So can you see how now this mouth movement coming down, this mouth movement coming down is now the beginning of his downwards movement. So it's not just a change in the expression. So here we're not even doing head, right? We're not even doing head leads the action. Listen now. Listen, I'm writing listen. We're not doing head leads action. Okay, here's some more narcissism for you. Here's me sharing some secret tips that nobody else will share, but it's narcissistic, right? Because I'm doing this all for myself, right? So heads lead. I'm just hoping that guy is still watching. You know, I'm deliberately overdoing that because because I know a lot of people who claim to pick holes in me. They can't get enough of me. They just want to watch me all the time. How's that for narcissism, right? So here's basically the head. Instead of head leads the action, if you want to be a great animator, you want to think of the head as the instrument of the mind, right? So it should be mind leads the action, right? And this will take you to a whole new level of animation mastery, because the one thing that everybody misses and that they're craving for is character, personality. What are they thinking and how are they thinking it, right? So I said that my reading of the beast is he's an enthusiastic child, right? He's a little kid in a beast's body, right? So he's basically like, here he's angry, he realizes something, he gets happy, overly happy, turns, and then suddenly remembers something else and immediately becomes dejected again, right? So we're telegraphing that with the mind first. So his mind, that change of expression is what leads the action, right? Change of expression is what leads the action. Do you understand, right? I think that is an extremely, one of the best examples I've ever given on something that you can, no matter what level you are now, but something that you can proactively do to start making a change in your own animation today, right? So it's my pleasure to help you with that. Right, so I'm not going to in between hair and hair, right? I'm going to focus more on this because this is a bigger change, right? So his head has got a lot of weight to it. So the next breakdown between hair and hair, right, before I go drawing any in-betweens, is we got to do the whole bounce thing here, but subtle, right? So I'm not gonna, again, here's not what I'm gonna do, right? I'm not gonna take this guy's head, this is gonna be an exact example of the kind of bad animation that I talk about, right? This is what a symbol cutout guy would do, and then he might pull and change the face in the rig, to be fair, because he's got the technology now, right? He'll come down there and bounce up, right? And a lot of people would, back in the day, they would place and trace that, right? And then you'll feel this punchy little bounce, right? Right, let's look at that. You'll feel a punchy little bounce, right? Oh, you really feel the weight, man. It's stiff, it's dead. You can blink him, you can change the expression slightly, you can put some follow through and overlap, but it's still fucking shit, right? And that's what I'm trying to get across. It's not real animation. It never is. You're not pushing the arc. You're just snapping from one pose to another pose, and that's not what the great Disney animators did. They never did it. It works. It infinitely makes the movement better, but you see AI and software, and that operates like that. Why on earth would the human being, the human mind that built the software, want to copy he built the software to be economical and do it faster than him? But use your imagination, use your skill, use your ability. Remember, mind leads the action. So this is why we never do that unless you're either forced to do it for time constraints for your job, which is why a lot of anime does that, right? Or you just want to be lazy and you want to just knock out something quick to go viral. Nothing wrong with that, right? But if you want to be a great animator, ain't gonna help you in any way, shape, or form. We've got the lovely Hervonia Baker with a question. What would you say are the correct things to practice if you want to become a strong artist, and how do you practice it in an efficient way and not waste time? Hervonia, we have been here so many times, which is why I'm gonna say this with a lot of love. Okay? I wrote this down. I got so inspired by something I heard online that I wrote it down, right? Hervonia, listen. Right? It said, okay, let me play a game with you in the chat right now, right? I'm going to write something down. Right, this is a can of worms. Now, Hervonia, I'm going to talk specifically to my friend Hervonia, but you can all play along. I've just written wealth down, all right? Type in the chat what comes to your mind when you think of wealth. Oh, I'm going to enjoy this. Okay, we've got Repro, baby. What do you think of, Hervonia? It's not a trick answer. You see, don't try to cheat your subconscious. Your subconscious has already given you the immediate answer. Your subconscious has already given you the immediate answer, and you're trying to think, is it a trick question? Go with the immediate answer, because that's where all your real beliefs are. Don't try to change. You can't change a habit. Your habitual beliefs are the immediate answer, and it'll take more than a little thought in a live stream to change it. So be honest. What do you think of when you read that word wealth? We've just got Hervonia and Repro, baby. I'm going to give you 10 seconds if anybody else wants to play along. If you don't, then that's fine. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's it. So Hervonia says freedom and Repro Baby says fame. Okay. Let me tell you what it really is. It's control. Well, it can be anything, right? But let me tell you how I think this will help you. Recognize this, but would think of money and power. That's right, Cameron. That's what most people think of. It's control over attention. It's authority over perception. See, I'm giving you guys free mentoring videos right here. Because, all right, there's a saying, energy goes. So Hervonia asked me how not to waste time. Energy goes where attention flows. Right? So wherever you channel your attention, energy goes into that. So if you say, I wanna be famous, you channel your attention into being famous, right? Then you're wealthy. Somebody says, freedom, I want to be free. You channel your attention. Attention is the currency, right? Not dollars, not pounds, not rupees, not, I don't know, whatever, yen. Attention is the currency, not even time, right? Because time is always going, where are you putting your attention? Energy goes where attention flows. So if you put your attention to being free, if you put your attention, Cameron says money, power, you put your attention into that, you have wealth, right? But then, here's where the problem arises, my friends. You go, oh, it's that easy, I'm going to put my attention into it. I'm going to put my attention into that, and I'm going to get it. But then this thing called perception comes into play. So you start putting your attention, and with all of these things happening around you and all that going, your attention on that thing starts to have perception about, you know, what's right, what's wrong, what's better, what's worse. And where's your attention suddenly going? Into the something else that's better than you, the something else that's working, the idea that somebody else has, which is different from the idea that you was having. You see the cycle, Hervonia, here? And then the back and forth. Energy is now going everywhere because your perception is everywhere in this world of doom scrolling distraction. Alright? Doom scrolling distraction about anything and everything you want it to be, baby. Right? So quite frankly, what you need, Hervonia, more than anything else, isn't a new technique to draw, because you know, alright, Hervonia, what you ask me, what are the correct things to practice if you want to be a strong artist? What is the first thing you think of? Type it in the chat. Be honest. Alright, not just Hervonia, all play along. What do you think are the correct things to practice to be an artist? A great artist. I'm waiting. Somebody like Cameron will play along. Repro Baby will play along. Hervonia, I need you to be involved in this, right? Since you asked the question. Anatomy, right? Okay, we've got one. Anatomy, right? We've got two. Cameron's even correct. Cameron is even more. Anatomy is just one of the fundamentals, right? Fundamentals. Let's just have a free Google search with our doom scrolling device. So let's put our attention with our doom scrolling device and say basic fundamentals of drawing, right? Observation, composition, line quality, shape, form, proportion, perspective, and shading. All right. They didn't have anatomy in there, which is a little bit, but they're using anatomy in the video. But that's the AI response. We'll give it a break, right? But that's pretty much it. So imagine, Hervonia, if you put your attention for 3 months on observation. Imagine if you put your attention for another 3 months on composition. Imagine if you put your attention for another 3 months on just line quality, right? It's not rocket science. Yeah, that's painting, right? Mobster for art, absolutely, but I will separate painting from drawing. So color theory and all that stuff, I will move to, notice how I type fundamental of drawing, right? It's like having boxing and kickboxing, right? You can have fundamentals of striking with your fists and then fundamentals of striking with your feet, right? And then you put them together and what do you get? You get a complete fighter, man. So the thing is like the painting and the drawing are two very different approaches. So if you want to be like, that's the problem with online. So it's not hard, Hervonia. You already know, my friend, you already know. But what's stopping you is, okay, here's another one for wealth, right? Influence over human desire, right? Now, many of you will be thinking in a negative term, yeah, man, influence over human desire. The rich get rich and the poor get poorer, man, and all this kind of crap. All the big elites are, well, you're the one doom scrolling and they've got influence over that desire. So, but I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to go, who's the human that matters to you the most? Even if you think they don't. Because if that human was dead, the perception of the world would be nothing. You. So before you want to influence anybody's desires, my friends, you want to influence your own desires. Right? So don't go trying to weave away attention. Don't go to the conditioned response by the powers that be that you might believe are trying to influence your desires. Think. Cease to act unthinkingly and begin to think. And as you see the true and right course in small things, you must take that course. So, Hervonia, you have a very natural human desire, as what I have and anybody else has, which is to be, yours is in this instance to be great at art. In fact, you're obsessed about it. You love it so much that it brings you so much sorrow. It brings you so much depression. It brings you so much envy. It brings you so much frustration. Well, guess what? Those are all negative sides of the coin, right? You have to understand that all these things that human desire wants, to be great, to be special, to be highly skilled, to have a following, to be monetarily wealthy so you can be free, right? All of these things you already have. You don't think you do, but you already have them. Because you have this thing called attention, and you have this thing called perception, and you have this thing called influence over human desire. But you are very unskilled in this, because this is the driving force behind it. So I've told you many times, Hervonia, do this, do that. You even bought my anatomy archive, but when I look at what you post online, my friend, and I say this with the greatest of love, I'm like, okay, you're following that. And I think to myself, with you as a friend or a family member even, because it's out of love, as long as Hervonia is happy, as long as she's happy, you know, I'm not going to judge her if she's doing the wrong things or whatever, right? She might say that she wants to do this or she wants to do that, but her actions speak louder than words. So you want to have your own stall at your Comic Con and sell your art and all that, and you're putting your attention into that. Who am I to tell you that that's a waste of energy, right? I'm basically, all I want is for you to be happy. I have nothing but love and friendship for you because you've always been a good supporter of my channel. More so than a lot of people, even getting into fights with people in the comment section, which you really don't need to. So why would I want to not see you happy, Hervonia, right? But if you're asking me here on the stream, it's like attention, and also attention over where your human desire is, right? Because many of the times people think they want something, and they say they want something, and they believe they want something, but their actions are going in a completely opposite direction, right? This is why my system is called Real Animator Training. I say to people, don't buy. Don't buy. Because unless you get real with yourself, there's nothing the Real Animator Training Library can do for you. Because it's a very real system, and it's painful to look inside, and many people meditate and burst out crying because they have these subconscious blocks that are hidden away deep inside them that kind of stop them from doing things. And they go and see therapists and go to meditation sessions and all kinds of things just to kind of solve that. So you don't need to do that. You just need to forgive yourself for failure and do not condemn the past, for it is gone with its mistakes and its memory cannot last. That's literally what you need to do. But you're making it last because you're in a loop. Again, the system, input, right? You have a system in place. Your input, right? Your process. Your output, right? Which is your result. And then it goes back in a feedback loop, right? But are you looking at that result with attention, one eye, right? We all know this symbol, right? Right? Are you looking at your output with a single eye? Or is that eye constantly looking at what that? I'm going to put that into my input. I'm going to put that into my input. I'm going to put that into my input. The processing is going to go on the wheel of death, right? And all that's going to come out is frustration. And go back, go back, go back, go back in a messy loop that gets you nowhere. So I have literally spelled out for you, Hervonia, the things that you already know. But the reason why perhaps you're not doing those things is there's something in you that either doesn't really want that, even though you've convinced yourself that you do, and there's other things that you prefer. So you have to have a really honest question with yourself of why it is you know what to do, but you're perhaps not doing it, right? And it's too easy to say impatience and, all these other things. You have to go deeper. You have to really understand and listen. There is no wrong answer here. There is no wrong answer, because if you find out that you don't really want to be that kind of artist that you thought you wanted to be, then you should be happy, because now you're not going to waste energy, and you're going to be more at peace, and you're going to be doing what you want to be doing without pressure, and you'll be even more creative. So forgive yourself for going down a track that you perhaps didn't want to go on, right? That's why I always say, like I was talking about this guy who was commenting on my last live stream. He's saying, I really want to buy your program, but I need a heads up. Is it full of all of this narcissistic, arrogant talk? I just said, and he said, I'm a professor in a uni, by the way, so I know what I'm talking about when it comes to teaching people. He didn't use, I'm paraphrasing, he wasn't that blunt. He dressed it up as if he was really trying to have my best. I know those types. So, but I basically said, don't buy my product, right? If you don't harmonize with it, don't buy it. Because what I do is like I strip it bare to the truth, the reality. This is what it is. There isn't no fancy drawing that you can post on Instagram. You're going to be spending months on bouncing balls and swinging pendulums and stick figures. You're not going to be able to show anything off. You've got to work. But a lot of people want to live. It's all right. You can live your fantasy. But the difference between living your fantasy and playing with your fantasy is you just keep. You got to stop being childish, but keep the childlike quality. Live in your dream, and descend onto this earth with that as your purpose. Don't just try to just fantasize and then act like the finished article immediately, because you have to allow space for processing. You are the finished article, understand that, but this is the problem people have with all this manifesting stuff, this huge movement online. The fake it till you make it attitude. No. I prefer to call it believe it until you see it, right? Because just keep believing and understand that there's a process, right? So that's the best answer I can give you, Hervonia. I'd better get on with this now. To me, it's the most helpful answer, rather than, regurgitating Hervonia, focus on anatomy, spend half a year on the skeleton and half a year on the muscles, learn every bone in the body. In the meantime, work on perspective, learn about vanishing points, learn about 2 point, 1 point, 3 point, also understand about negative space, positive space, and all these tips, and you go, yeah, I got that, and then you're going to go away and carry on doing what you're doing, right? So I really want to help, so I've given you my best, right? I've given you mentoring kind of advice that people would some people would pay Tony Robbins tens of thousands for an hour of his time just for that, right? Now, I don't have the name or the reputation of Tony Robbins, so I don't deserve to charge tens of thousands, because unless you're a proven qualified mental coach in those areas. But I'm pretty sure that's the information's the same. But also the fact that they're talking to somebody who they almost worship like a god, he's going to charge them for that, right? But let's say I've given you enough of time on this stream, which is almost about $100 of an average mentoring private mentor session, really trying to get to the root of the problem of your problem, right? So I really hope that you take that in, right? Hey AMB, I recently watched your video, Animation with My Superpower. It's really motivating. I saw your sketchbook. Respect and admire your dedication to excellence and mastery. Thank you so much, Kenai. Really appreciate that. Hi Grayson. That's exactly why I'm here. I'm here to affiliate with like-minded people. And as I motivate and inspire them, you also help me grow. Because you iron out my abilities to do that, and when I help you grow, I'm indirectly helping myself grow. So it's absolutely amazing. All right, so we've talked about why we can't bounce this beast back. So I'm going to talk about what I would do, right? So I am going to have his head lower, right? But I'm not going to have his head dipped. His head is going to dip when it straightens up, right? So his nose is going to be here, right? His head is going to be more of an up angle, right? His nose is going to be here, and his eye line is going to be straight, right? Like this. And I want to think about this expression, right? Now I'm going to play with the squash and stretch of his mouth, right? Actually, if he's going to close his mouth is going to come up, but I don't want to close his mouth because he's still drooping down, right? So I'm going to keep his mouth even more open, right? So his beard's going to be hair, right? So again, I'm figuring out the shape. This thing is now going to go this way, right? So if I watch the path of that down, this, right? So I'm going to have this go here, right? So it'll come back on itself like this, right? So his colors is going to be even more down. Like this. We're going to go beyond it. Like this. So again, can you see how I'm working the silhouette more so than the... Notice how I'm actually, although his head is down, his back is higher, right? So we're going up to go down, and it's going to give him more of a feel there, right? So the horns are going to be now straight. This is where we're going to have a potential volume issue. Let's drag those ears so we can, the last thing we'll see is his ears going down, which will make it more sad. Right. Let's drag them a little bit higher, feeling a little bit stiff. You don't want to overdo them though, like the way those amateurs online animate body appendages and hair, right? So we're going to lower this here like that. All right. So this is the path that I want, right? I don't just want to bounce his head in that babyish way. So now we're going to feel the expression change. So this is going to be a challenging drawing to do, right? Because I'm going to first refer to this drawing, and then I'm going to have to redraw it to iron out volume issues, right? Which could end up killing the animation. And that's why a lot of people don't like to do this stuff, especially with a subtle, complex character like this, right? But I'm not a lot of people, right? So I'm gonna go hair to hair, and I may as well just save a bit of time. By referring to this one. But the angle of the nose is what I want to keep for this angle, right? And again, I don't want to place and trace that head. Now the model of the beast, I'm off slightly, right? Because his nose comes at the top there like that, right? So it's easy to fall into traps if you don't know the character too well, right? Remember, I only really looked at this character for a little bit on one live stream with a Google image search, right? I'm just animating it cold without looking at any model sheet or anything like that, right? Just a Google image search. But you gotta, once you get good at this, you basically understand model and formula. So you see, Hervonia, what I did, Hervonia, you've seen me in other streams spend 3 months studying the work of John Lounsbury, nothing else. I've got all these projects and visions and ideas that I want to get off the ground. But even at my level, I feel, you know what? I thought that Glenn Keane and John Pomeroy and Don Bluth were the greatest when I was young. But then, as you go down, as you open the rabbit hole, go down the rabbit hole, you realize that actually there's Milt Kahl, there's John Lounsbury, there's Frank Thomas, there's Mark Davis, there's Ward Kimball, and to my mind, they're the greatest. So I got to restudy, right? And after restudying, all of this 90s stuff, which I thought was so good, it is good, it's awesome, don't get me wrong, I'm not undermining it, but I'm just doing this to outline the greatness of the 9 Old Men, right? All of this stuff comes so piss easy to me that I don't even have to try, right? Just from 3 months of solid study, but it isn't just from 3 months, because add to that all of the training library exercises I take you through, and all of the anatomy study, and all of the years, you know, I've had 20 years of business experience in the animation industry, don't forget. But some of those years are wasted years, because, you know, as I said, these concepts about authority over perception, control over desire, and influence over desire and control over attention, right? That's what really maketh the human. Right? So I could have shaved, if I were doing what I'm doing now, I could have got it in as little as 5 years. Right? But then again, it's like the stock market. Nobody wants to wait. Nobody wants to invest. They want the quick term results. Get rich quick, right? Which is why a lot of people who do 9 to 5s and all that kind of stuff, they're stuck in a rut, right? Because of the mentality of wanting day-to-day habit patterns that are imprisoning them to want to see a change quick because of the frustration of the accumulation of those habit patterns taking effect on their life, right? So it's not going to be easy to come out of it. Of course it's not. But it's simple, right? The process is simple. Simple and easy are two very different things. Right? So notice how I'm just looking at this image of the beast, right? And not this one, right? And you can see a huge volume change happening, right? Which is not going to work for such a subtle move. But I don't care, right? Because I know that it's a process that's taking place. And these decisions are being made, right? And if I start trying to be a volume master and an animator at the same time, I'm thinking like a guy in a sweatshop in Japan, right? A lot of people wish they could do that, right? But to somebody who really knows and understands animation, that guy in the sweatshop doesn't want to be there, and it isn't just doing it like that, just isn't just because of the money, right? And the hours. It's because you want to do your craft well. You want to be able to have time to think, to make it better, right? As I said, so many fanboys out there just want to defend the stuff that they're fanboying over, but they don't want to accept the truth about the kind of conditions and the kind of skill and effort that's gone into something that they treasure as being the very meaning of their lives. Okay, treasure it, but be honest. Be honest with yourself, right? It's like some people like to eat McDonald's, right? They like it, they love it. They don't care what anybody else has to say. They don't care if somebody's really worked hard on a recipe and used fresh ingredients. They don't care if people are calling them uncultured swine, right? They like McDonald's, and more power to them because they're honest with themselves, right? But what happens is when people want to elevate things they like and bend the truth, right? Perception is always altering, so perception becomes your truth. There's not one truth. But then when facts come into play, there's no getting around that. Right? One can live their life via perception of truth, and that's an amazing way to live. I'm not criticizing that. But if you have a task, if you have a goal, something physical that needs to be physically accomplished, then you must take facts into play, rules, fundamentals that'll help that bring that non-physical perception into a physical experience, right? Can be done. Now I'm switching over to this one because I've got a horn. The horns are coming into play here, right? Not bad, but it's too big in the face, right? We got this and this and this, right? So there'll be a huge volume issues, but I found my art, right? Sweatshop is insane. What are some scenes from some of your favorites that you deem excellent, and what about them you find most impressive? Okay, Sword in the Stone, the entire sequence when they're squirrels. It is the best way. It's a three-way acting sometimes between three characters, with the squirrel going all over the character, running over them, trying to chase the boy, and the old man. You've got three different personalities contrasting with each other in such a beautiful manner, and they feel alive. I'm going to use a lot of Sword in the Stone here. You've got Sir Hector and Kay when they're battling the dishes, and then not the scene is where they're battling the dishes, after the dishes have defeated them and Merlin comes back. The interplay between Sir Hector and Kay. You've then got Lady and the Tramp. You know, the way they have taken those designs of those dogs and used their bodies and there's like the little legs of the Scottish Terrier to really, and really taken the essence of the way the real animal moves, but yet somehow made them behave and move like human beings, but not cheating it in the way that like those characters have had to come out of their bodies, their original bodies. The scene where Tramp's waking up, washing himself, the scene where the little Scottish guy is having an argument, telling the Tramp to get out, to move away. There's just too much in that film. Sleeping Beauty, the staging of Maleficent, the sequence where the owl is dancing with the cape and the rabbits of the shoes. Type that into AI and ask AI to come up with something like that. People really don't think. They're just so afraid because AI is giving them what's in their immediate head, which is all this Hollywood fake CGI nonsense for the past 20 years anyway. Your eyes have been dumbed down to take that stuff, to think that's all there is. Just go back a few decades and see some real creativity, right? So the scene, the dancing of the owls dressing up is just incredible. Grumpy and Snow White, the Sheriff of Nottingham in Sword in the Stone, Madame Medusa and the Rescuers, King Louis in the Jungle Book is insane. His acting, just insane. There's just so much that and I guess what makes these scenes so amazing is they're pure animator scenes. We're not talking about filmmaking. We're not talking about action, quick cutting, dramatic lighting, mood, composition, mise en scene, which is the term the French filmmakers coined for this kind of thing. Because anime will destroy a lot of Disney and that, and I'll be the first to say it. But that's not an animators. That's not animation. You see all these online people going, I'm an animator, and all they're doing is this whizzing camera and all this fight scene, which isn't even, these weightless punches that are timed like this with these weightless blocks with the camera swirling and they're jacking off to that. Good luck to them, but I'm sorry, that's not really, that's filmmaking. It's not necessarily good animation. So the animator's animator is like the illusion of life. When you forget what you're watching as a cartoon, and you really, the way the character's acting and behaving with the subtle little nuances, doing everyday ordinary things, but you're smiling when you're watching it. Oh look, there's a orangutan scratching his ear and scratching his head and is rubbing his belly while holding a little kid, and the little kid's boxing and trying to hit him, and then he's talking over to some other guys. Oh look, there's this woman talking on the phone, pointing down the phone, pulling open her drawer, looking at all that. Not something a 16-year-old juvenile that wants to see all kinds of fighting and whizzing camera is not going to get them excited. But if you're a master of your craft and you know what's the hardest thing to do is to make is to bring the inanimate to life, real life, through these movements, which is why I tried to do that thing with the badger. That's the kind of animation that really tests the animator. Are you able to look, when you look at somebody, you can get their vibe. They might not even say something. You meet somebody, they're smiling, but something feels wrong inside in your gut, and you think there's something this guy's not telling me. I don't feel he's all there. I don't feel, you can feel the vibe. Now, if through a screen I can create a drawing through a bunch of lines, and through their nuanced movements you can feel the vibe and you can read their mind, boom, that's real animation. That's real animation. It's stripped bare of all the, the dress up stuff. I love action. I love it. It's great. I want to do it too. Who doesn't like it? I'm getting a lot of love online, but a lot of few vocal people moaning about my Gracie Goodbear, a pin-up bear with all of the assets that a Gen X man loves about his Gen X merchandise that was marketed to him through pin-up women. And I've done that, and I enjoy that, and I do that, and I like doing that too, but that is by far, that's not my best animation. But it's getting, a lot more love than the badger, which is a far superior piece of animation. So the fact of the matter is like, I like doing that too. But if we're going to go and say what is the kind of animation that really excites me and inspires me, is when I consciously know it's an animation. I constantly know it's a drawing. But when I'm watching it and I'm feeling that it's another being, right? I love my cat. My cat comes, I love it more than most people. I love her more than most people, I gotta be honest. It's not a human, but I feel her like a living thing. When I'm watching Baloo and Bagheera arguing about the man cub, I feel like I'm a fly on the wall in another world watching two living beings. And that's not due to the great voice acting. The voice acting plays a part, but that's not due to the great voice acting. That's due to the animation, the performances, the facial nuances, the personality coming out. That's what real hardcore animation is, and that's what I know to be is the best stuff. And that's, to the contrary, the hardest thing to do. So every time I'm doing this kind of stuff like here, trying to show you that like as he turns, like as he changes his mood here, I'm gonna have him like do this little kind of realization come up, and then he'll do this extra smile to himself, right? Might blink to himself, because I want to give the audience a moment to get inside his mind, right? Then he turns here, right? Typical like fluid head turn, where all beginners on the internet, they mean well and I love them. Hey, fluid animation, man. It's not about fluid animation. It's about this hair, right? This little bit of his mouth going up as he blinks and his ears going up before he changes expression, right? That's where picking those moments, knowing how to use them, knowing how to put them in there, that's where those decision making has to be natural, right? Now we can see the curl of the head hair like this, right? Like that. Okay, so I've just seen my friend Maharshi Gautam. Long time, how are you? Good to see you. So that's Carl the Snake man in Jungle Book. That whole trust in me, hold still please, and his legs are the squares and he's circling him around. That's clever use of the word, the staging. It might not be cinematic, but guess what? It's illustrative, and I love it. So that's what I mean. That's what's animation to me, right? All right. So let's now pull the volume into place, because we use this one to get to this one, right? But as we come back here, there's a lot of volume issues in his head, right? So I am gonna think about fixing that, right? So I'm just gonna use flipping here, right? So first thing that needs to be fixed is his cheek, right? That's the biggest culprit, right? The cheek here, right? So we're going to bring this in. Right. So now you see no light box is being used here, because I don't want it to be like I used the example of shift and trace in these slowing in moments that are killing modern hand-drawn animation, right? When they're going to bring back 2D hand-drawn animation, don't hold your breath, because they're going to be using AI, and they're going to probably be trying to, it's a business, right? Influence over human desire. Human desire is right now on all the crazy anime stuff, and all those spinning camera moves, stuff where the computer can really come in and help with, right? And all of this meaningful stuff, they're probably just gonna, a lot of people in the industry don't do this anymore, right? With that draw, they try to do it in some CG, right? To be fair. So the drawing, they're just gonna make the movements, the big movements hand-drawn, and all these golden moments which I'm sharing with you about what really makes the animation good. They're just going to do it in a placey-tracey rig manner, which is what the AI, where the AI will come in and just make the in-betweens, right? So I'm not holding my breath, right? I don't expect to see anything good from the industry standpoint if they're revisiting hand-drawn animation, unless they go full-blown. There used to be this term, full-blown hand-drawn animation, right? And that's what excites me, right? The reason I'm doing what I'm doing is as I truly now, I don't care if said audience member is watching and he wants to call me narcissistic, so be it. When the Wright brothers wanted to invent an aeroplane, I'm sure they were narcissistic too, right? So I believe I'm not interested in what Disney or anybody does anymore, because I believe the things I'm doing are the future of hand-drawn animation. That's what I want to do. I've created real animation to bring back these things that are getting lost, these essential, the mindset, the essential mindset of the real animator that is getting lost in technology, completely lost in technology. Oh, we'll call technology a tool, we'll call it a tool, and we'll still hand draw it, but then who are you bringing in to hand draw it, right? Because the Renaissance men are, you know, a lot of them are getting on, you know, and how much longer? Are these skills really being shared to future generations? Are they really? I doubt it. I doubt it. Right? So who are you going to be getting with the right mentality to do this stuff? Right? Studio Ghibli doesn't do this stuff. Not even close. It's going to anger a lot of people, but what I've busted out on these live streams is more advanced than most Studio Ghibli character animation. Right? I don't care how that sounds to most people. I have no fear in stating fact. Right? That's not the way they animate. They don't animate this way. Right? They don't even break dialogue down and listen to the track. They don't think about performance. They think very, very bare-boned about performance. That's not that. Studio Ghibli stuff is fantastic. It's great. It's awesome. It's incredible. It's better to watch than some Disney films, and I'm the first to say that. But the way that the actual character animation, no, right? There's more to character animation than. There's more to an animated film than just character animation, right? So I need to be clear that we're on the same page. You understand what I mean when I'm talking about character animation compared to, a lot of people just think animation is the whole film, right? The whole world building aspect of Studio Ghibli, the whole art direction, the production design, the staging, the storyboarding, the sensibilities, the music by Joe Hisashi that also layers in an extra element of grace and beauty. That's all what goes into the finished product, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the movements of the characters. So it's important to understand these things and be honest with yourself about certain things rather than just going to the conditioned response. The conditioned response is extremely lazy. Here I can see that half of the face, we're solving the volume issue there, right? It's good. Now the horns are where we could have some problems, so I'm going to change the direction a little bit. Pure flipping of the drawing. It's as I was saying earlier, the authenticity for me is everything. Authentic hand-drawn animation. What's the purpose of it? The purpose of this particular animation is to prove a point and to make a point to the people in my live stream. I'm not doing this for anybody else. You challenged me to animate the beast, right? Just from a Google image search. And I've done so. And as I've said, many people, I don't know if it's many people, but the one person who wanted to bitch on my last live stream, get ready because it's coming again, right? Effortlessly busted out some of the highest standard of multi-million dollar movie animation on a live stream. Effortlessly busted out animation of a far more technical difficulty than what's in I would say 80% of the Studio Ghibli character movements, all just while talking on my live stream, right? So That's why I'm doing it. Okay. Not to show off about it, not to talk about how great it is, but to bring a sense of realization that this kind of thing is not beyond you, right? It's something that you're more than capable of doing if you learn the right things, the real things, the real way, right? And you stop putting things on a pedestal and start to appreciate your own power, your own beauty, your own ability. So if I'm setting an example to awaken, to quote, I haven't even read the book. I don't know why. He seems like a nice guy, but it doesn't really appeal to me. But one of my family members keeps telling me to read the book, Awaken the Giant Within. I said, that's a great title. Who wrote it? He said, Tony Robbins. I said, okay, right. But it's a good title, so I'm going to steal it, right? If I'm helping you awaken the giant within, or I'm either helping you defend the victim that always wants a reason of why they can't do something. So go ahead and call me a narcissist in the chat if it helps you, right? Right. We're going to put that there. We're going to have this out here like that. So this should be solving the volume. I will give it a test in a minute. Got to get rid of the yellow. I'll come and read the chat in a second. But talking about Gracie Goodbear, I'm happy to say that I'm going to be trying out a short funder with her because she has become suddenly elevated herself. She's come back. She lost the first round, but she's come back with a vengeance, and has been going absolutely crazy in all of my social media outlets. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, which I never even really bother with, but people are liking it. Right, so that sorts out the volume of the face, right? So if we look, we now can feel the, let me just turn off this thumbnail here. Turn off this thumbnail here. We now can see, we can now see even there that little blink leading into that change of expression, right? So now I'm going to throw in a few, how are we doing for time? 1:52. I'm going to throw in a few in-betweens just to show the timing of this better to you. But this is the main keys and breakdowns, right? I don't need to do anything else, right? These are the main keys and breakdowns. In fact, I could give this to an in-betweener with a chart and they're ready to just do the bare bones, right? So, let me just see the chat. I want my project to have mostly subtle acting with a few cartoony moments to contrast it. Great! You should work on that. If that's what it is, then you should study films that do that. Happy to catch your stream after so many days. Interesting and informative. Thank you, Maharshi. All gonna do bean mouths. Let me draw a quick bean mouth character since everybody's like, let me see if I can design a good bean mouth character. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's strange. You usually expect that with new generations, the quality would advance and rise in levels, adding to new stuff, finding what the old missed. But it has regressed and become so simplistic. Well, it's like nobody knows how to spell and do grammar anymore, really. I mean, I for one don't, even though I have a pretty good command of spoken English. I read a lot and I have a good way with words, and when my daughter asks me to write stuff for her because she thinks my English is so good, and she's from New Zealand, she realizes, your grammar's all over the place. I said, well, that's for you to fix. AMB Cooking, your skill set is aspiring. Hi, Daydream Dragon, how are you? I was wondering what would help me make better arcing for an animal character. Does it matter if the arcs aren't exactly traditional? Listen, arcs, before you can get advanced with your arcs, Daydream Dragon, you really need to understand basic arcs. So you don't need to understand figure of 8 arcs, which is the way the hips walk, you know. We like to use the female, the sexy female as an example, but males do that too. It isn't just up and down like that. It's a shift of weight in the buttocks as you balance on one leg onto another to create a figure of 8, right? So you need to understand figure of 8 arcs, and they help you with all kinds of anatomical characters, whether they're animals or humans, because that's the basic locomotion. But that's a formula, and really, if you want to really learn it properly, my friend, then you need to really spend 3 months at the very least on basic arcs. Carrots, I love it here. Invokes productivity. Thank you for the work, sir. My pleasure. Kyle, the only bean-mouth characters I can stand are from Gravity Falls. All of this texting has made us dumber. Haha, yes it has. Alright, let me see if I can design a bean-mouth, a cool bean-mouth. Before I draw these in-betweens, let's have some fun. Let's have some fun. Right, let me see if I can design a bean-mouth character. So a bean-mouth character generally has a shape of head, right? So I'm thinking like a Samurai Jack shape head, right? Generally has a head like that. Let's give him a cool color. Let's go in the pure like abstract. Let's show how easy it is to create something appealing when you know how, right? Let's play with the anatomy of the skull. Let me just take anatomy. Right? Let me take anatomy. Let me dumb down a good drawing first. Right? Let me dumb down a good drawing first. Right? Let's give him a nose like that. Right. Let me emphasize. Let's just do it as me. Right, so let's give him a hat. Let's give him a bit of hair coming out of that hat. Right, now, hardly bean mouth, but let's try and turn him into a bean mouth character. Alright. So let me look at a bean mouth example, because I don't really do that shit. Right, so Gravity Falls. Someone said Gravity Falls. I've never seen it, never want to see it, never will see it, but I'm gonna look at it now because somebody, oh my god. Oh Jesus, this is gonna, I take it back, I'm not gonna be able to do this. It's too ugly, it's too shit, but none of them have got bean mouths. Well, I see they have got bean mouths when they open. Right. Oh my god. Okay, I don't know if I should waste time trying to make a good bean mouth character. I don't think I'm capable. There I was all confident. If this was cited as the best example, okay, let's round it. Let's make it all soft and unmasculine, right? Let's round it. Right. So that's the first thing we'll do. We'll round it off. Right. We'll put a little bit of that there like that. Then we'll have to round the nose. Let's round the nose like that. Goodness me, the expressions, oh dear, I don't want to draw it. It hurts too much. It hurts too much doing this. No. I can't do it, it's shit. Oh. Ah! No. No, I can't. No, I can't. I feel physically ill. I'm not joking. I really do. I feel physically sick. I feel physically sick. I feel violated. It looks like I've just seen something I don't want to see. Oh. Right. Let's do some in-betweens. There, I failed the challenge. You guys beat me. It's not the worst kind of choppy animation, it's the worst kind of drawing, man. Better delete your history, yeah. Just awful. You can't get any kind of deep facial expressions that I was talking about in that stuff. Just ugly trash. Right, okay. This I'm gonna put in some some partials first, right? Yeah, most of this is done. So I'm gonna tell you where we need to do things, right? So this is fine, this is fine. What's here is there should be one half between here and here, but that's a boring half. That'll waste time doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to indicate timing to you with this thing called partials, right? So let me get blue. So here's where we kind of don't think so much about the arcs. Let me just draw a quick Gracie Goodbear to get out of that, right? Because she's the exact opposite. The kind of people that like Beanmouth are hating Gracie, and they're hating the love that Gracie's getting, right? So let's have Gracie just look at them with loving eyes to thank them for beefing her up in the algorithm, right? Oh man, this feels so much nicer. There we go. Not really like that. This is exactly for those guys. And it's for me as well to cure myself from the bean mouth. Because in-betweening the beast isn't really drawing, right? It's in-betweening. You don't really draw when you're in-between. You just arc between a bunch of lines, right? And this is exactly what they hate about Gracie, right? They don't like her build. Right? There we go. I feel much better after drawing that than the bean mouth. There we go. I've taken lessons from your training, but I want to send you one of my animation work for critique. Is there anything that needs improving? If there's a, you can do that on the Facebook wall of the Growth, Development and Progress Facebook group. So if you are a Training Library member, you have this thing here called a Real Animator dashboard, right? And hang on, what's going on? Let's go home. Okay. I have to unblock this, right? Stupid GDPR thing. Why has it remembered that? Never mind. The website is doing what it's doing. Right, so you go to your dashboard, right? Oh, I know why. That's a coding site. That's on incognito mode, right? That's the wrong version of my site. Sorry, not going to help. Here's the official site. Okay, right. So, go to the dashboard, and you will see Training Library Archives Support Real Animator Community. Click on that. You will be taken to this group. I can't guarantee that I give feedback, but this is the best way to get me to look at something, is our global Facebook group. It's full of library members and non-library members. So this is good. You can see Michael did this a while back. Cameron's working on this at the moment. So Cameron's doing this on paper. So Cameron's doing this dog exercise on paper. But you can see that Michael has finished it. And he's even gone and shoved the background in there. So this is where a lot of the Training Library members like to post their efforts. So that's one of the exercises in the advanced archive that both Cameron and Michael have done. And I don't guarantee that I'll look at stuff, because that's why the Training Library is priced at what it is. If you think about it, people only get one day or with Don Bluth and a few Skype things, and they give him 10 grand, right? So I don't do that. I charge you for the price of a weekend away, or a Xbox with some games, or an iPad Pro, and I give you the best training in the world. But in spite of that, I do care about the people that join my library, Vivi. So which is why I have this open Facebook group. But I have endless amounts of people reaching out to help me. And I try to do as much as I can on these streams for the goodwill and the community. But the best way of getting me to look at something is posting in that group. And if you're a Training Library member, I will prioritize who I look at. Because if people have bought my course, then I will prioritize them over the ones who haven't. Yeah, that's really good, Kenai. I'm really proud of the people coming out of the Training Library. And in a matter of fact, that dog exercise, which is taken from my thing, the great Andreas Deja saw Michael's test of it and liked it. So that's the kind of attention people who train from Real Animator Training get, you know. They're not like personal friends, or they haven't worked together like, say, Aaron Blaze or Andreas Deja did. I'm a complete stranger to those guys, but my students are getting attention from them, and that is amazing. That's what it's all about. I want a Nintendo Switch too with some games, but not yet. Well, some people want that over Real Animator Training. It's like this guy who called me a narcissist. He said, I basically told him, look, go to John Pomeroy Academy, go to Aaron Blaze, consider Don Bluth if you're super serious, but my library is not for you if you don't like my delivery. And then he comes back to me and says, I wouldn't pay for it in this economy anyway. I'm like, okay, well, some people, you know, when you go abroad for like a week, you're going to spend more than $3 grand. That's already more than what my Training Library is. So some people just don't want it the way they think they want it, right? If this is your life and you're going to spend your life doing something, and for the rest of your life you're going to be armed with the skills that are really going to take you there, and you keep coming back to this one place, because if he's already a member of Pomeroy and he's already a member of Aaron Blaze, he's proving my point. Why is he coming to me? Because all those who are truly serious in learning animation are always going to be drawn to real animator training. You know. But if the price point, if less than $3,000, which is the price he'll spend on a week away of a holiday, a little getaway, which will come and go like a fart in the wind in his life, is gonna be more important to him than life-changing training in something he claims he really wants to do and invest his time and energy in, then he's not real. He doesn't belong in the real animator training library. So that's what I say, get real before you become real, right? You got to get real to become real, right? With yourself. So I can't remember why I started talking about that. I guess we're talking about, the people who are benefiting from the training system. People like Cameron and Michael were really walking the talk, shall we say, literally with that dog walk cycle and getting Andreas Deja's approval. And even if just that one little approval from Andreas Deja, and that's it, that does for the self-confidence so much. I remember when Eric Goldberg sent me an email, replied to my email I sent him with a test I did of the genie, and he basically said, you could have easily worked on Aladdin. I was a changed man. I've never spoken to Goldberg, never met him, but for the rest of my life I was a changed man just from that one word of assurance from somebody who I truly valued as a young man trying to make it in this world, right? So it's also those experiences that are priceless. But for some of you, Xbox Lives, iPad Pros, holidays away, are worth more, and that's fine as long as you're happy, right? So here, let's get in here and do the halves, right? So I'm gonna half this. I'm gonna use a small brush because I'm gonna just use this as guide, right? Just to give you an idea of the timing. So I'm gonna half the nose, right? And I'm just gonna half it as a shape. I'm not gonna half it as anything else, right? Not even that. I'm gonna half this line here. We already figured out what we're doing with his teeth, right? So I'm gonna, with this mouth, I'm gonna keep it almost just 1/3 of the way closed, right? I'm not going to half the mouth, right? Because I don't want even, this is the problem with anime mouth movements, like even in the great Akira, right? They half mouth shapes. Mouths are like birds that rapidly twitch and turn. You want to favor them, or you want to do them on thirds, right? Don't half them, right? Because it'll just look like a bean mouth growing and shrinking, right? Actually, there was a bean mouth in Akira, which was quite embarrassing for a film that I love, but it's indefensible. When Kaneda is in the police station and he's laughing at the police chief, I saw that and I said, wow, how did the great Katsuhiro Otomo let that pass? Maybe he just thought it was funny, right? But it was just bad drawing. Okay. It's funny that I've just got a coach and mentor wanting to connect with me on LinkedIn. I don't know if he's watching the live stream or if the universe and the subconscious is at play. Right, okay, right, there we go. Right, so I'm kind of halving that. And I'm not going to do anything with the body. I'm just going to show you because I'm going to speed through these things because these things are going to give you an idea of the timing, right? So the face is on half, the mouth is on thirds. eyebrows, a shape. See, now you see how in-betweening is not really drawing, right? I have had to think a little bit about the space of the mouth with animation theory, but in-between is in-betweening lines. So I used to feel sorry for a lot of in-betweeners that I used to meet when I was working in England, because they would have the dream of becoming animators, but they fell into the in-betweener, and in England they call it all assisting, right? Assistant animators are very different in the Disney school of thought back in the original day. But so they spend their whole life just in-betweening lines, and they think, wow, I get to study all these animators' amazing drawings, and I'll get better at drawing. It doesn't work like that, because unless you take time to really study anatomy and study shape and study independently, and then see how that animator has used those things, then you'll really learn something, right? Now this eye is wrong. See, remember how eyes and mouths, they're a little bit more rapid, so I'm going to angle the eye shape down. Again, that's the animator, not the in-betweener in me, right? Gonna do something like that. Right. The horn we will half, and that's it. I'm not going to do any more. I'm not going to do the body. I just want you to see the timing, right? So all of this is why we use the light box here, and why I say never use the light box when you're animating, because when you're animating, you're drawing, right? You're drawing. We use the light box to keep an eye on arcs. We use the light box to keep an eye on things like that, but we don't really draw when we in between. We make marks. We just draw lines between lines and manage shapes, right? One could get philosophical and say, isn't that what drawing is? But I think you know what I mean. Right? All right, no more of that. We're not going to detail in the nose, but that's good enough. See, I haven't even thought about drawing, and I've suddenly pulled back and there's a beast, a perfectly drawn beast, right? Without me even thinking about it. That's what an in-betweener is, just in-betweening lines, right? So if we look here, now we're slowing into that blink, right? So as we come out of this now, we've got to think, right? So I'm going to slow out, right? That's not the only in-between, by the way. This will be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. Right, so I will have about 3 in-betweens between hair and hair, right, to keep it subtle and movie-like he's breathing, a big heavy character breathing, right? Need to push the slow in there, right? Especially with the 90s style of animation, with their unnatural drifts of slowing in for the sake of slowing in, if you want to capture that era. I'm moving away from that after studying the 9 Old Men. They didn't do that, right? That happened after Roger Rabbit, right? And the whole new mentality of this Richard Williams floaty kind of thing. I prefer the 9 Old Men. Right. Oh yeah, I wanted to say that I loved your finished piece of angry art. Yeah, I recognized that BG music immediately. Rachmaninoff. I heard that piece in the short film about a princess turning into a dragon. It has been a long time since I've done feedback. Yes. I need a quick recovery therapy to forget about the bean mouth attempt. Yep, I did. From the people that took away Hello Nurse. Well, Hello Nurse is coming back. Gracie Goodbear is going to be there. If you want to help get her made, I will be starting a page to crowdfund Gracie very soon, actually, because the decision has been made to move forward with Gracie Goodbear as a small crowdfunding test before we jump into other things. Straight from haters gonna hate that. What you say about non-hopping mouths makes sense for lip movement, but I'm surprised you wouldn't do it when he's not meant to be moving his mouth to speak. Because it's the same. You wouldn't just go, you'd be like, if I'm gonna swallow, if I'm going to close my mouth, because the orbicularis oris, which is the muscle around the mouth, and all the buccinator and all of the levators and depressors around the mouth, they've got a twitchness in them. And the mouth is designed for, you know, protecting the opening, right? And bringing things in. So it seldom ever moves in a even controlled way. And if you do that, it's more if you just want to do something like a look in awe, where it's growing, you want that growing feel. So here, but I half the mouth a lot when I'm just not thinking, right? It's a bad habit. So here, that's you know, people who watch too much anime have grown used to the half mouth look, right? So here, what I'm going to do is, as I said, I'm going to slow out, but I'm not. I'm going to come out on a half. I was gonna come out on a third, but I'm going to come out on a half, right? But I'm going to make the difference in his face, right? The eyes, while his head is going to be on a third, the eyes on a half, the eyes are going to be on a third, right? This is where the difference is going to be made, right? The eyes are going to be on a third, thus the nose is going to have to be. Now maybe the eyebrows are going to be on a half, because the nose has to be. The nose is attached to the eye line at the top like that, right? So we're going to have the nose there. So we're going to really create this change in expression on the brows. So I'm going to use this one. So a little less of in-betweening lines here when I'm creating this drawing, right? So this would go to perhaps a junior animator or an assistant animator if the cleanup guy is not capable of drawing that, right? You want to play it safe. Some cleanup guys are, depending on where they work. Now here I'm going to stretch those eyelids, right? And I'm going to just open. So we're doing squash and stretch on the eyes, right? On the eyes. I'm going to do that. Now the mouth hair, I'm going to not put on a half, I'm going to put on a third. I'm going to stick to what I said I was going to do, because I want to feel that opening less like it's growing. So the teeth are going to be a 1/3, especially with a character like the Beast, because the Beast has got these big teeth at the bottom of his mouth, right? And I'm not going to open it either, right? The Beast has got these big teeth at the bottom of his mouth, and if we see them just floating on even halves, right? Favor will be too much, you know, but a third will be subtle, and it'll have the weight of a half, but it'll have a bit more speed and pop to it to stop it from being even weightless animation in the face, right? That's another thing that'll kill the life out of your animation is his facial stuff. And I didn't get this from studying 90s, right? I got this from studying Lounsbury's, the facial nuances, the amount of favoring and thirds that were used to change expression over movements that were mainly done in halves, just in the facial expression, really was an eye-opener for me. So these horns are going to be on a half, right? And I'm not going to really get into drawing them. I'm speeding through this with as fast as I can, just to give you the timing when I scrub. That's enough. Let's just put a little bit of that there to join the body to something. Right. So we now have I'll mental note of this, my arch nemesis. Okay, we don't have anything further in the chat roll. So now we can see, right, that see how the lips catch up to it, right? And it doesn't, like, the mouth feels separate to the rest of the face, right? Which is what we want. We don't want everything working together. We want everything kind of delayed or independent to really give it that feel, right? Already it destroys a lot of Ghibli animation, right? I'm saying that on purpose, not to boast, but to awaken you to the possibilities of what you're capable of if you study the right things, right? The average Joe doesn't know who I am, right? The average Joe thinks the Ghibli animations are amazing, right? I'm here talking away, drawing pin-up, busty cartoon bears to cure myself of bean mouth drawing on a live stream, busting out animation effortlessly that takes down most of the stuff in Studio Ghibli movies when it comes to character movement. Again, the intention of that comment is to awaken you to your own possibilities, not to my greatness, which is completely apparent to the guy who called me a narcissist. Right, okay. Now, this one I am going to bring down on a third, 2/3 of the way, right? So immediately as I'm making in-betweening, I'm not drawing charts, but I know exactly what will work from a timing perspective, and that's these kind of secrets that really help you understand how to make the right choices. So the choices I'm making right now are timing and spacing choices, right? Which is a combination of the law of slowing in and slowing out in conjunction with the law of timing. And of course, we have already defined our arcs. So now the nose is going to go on a half, right? I want the nose to come back even, right? I don't like, when I look at the spacing of the nose, I think a half will solve that easier. Now what to do with the mouth? The mouth, we're going to have the mouth on 2/3 of the way, right? It still won't affect the distance that it is between the nose, right? Because it's open now. So all of the hard work has been worked out in the key and breakdown drawings. So can you see why most amateurs and beginners really struggle at animation and they get it wrong? Because they've learned to draw from people who don't really know how to draw, who have been using digital software, and all they're doing is spending ages on one image, pulling and tweaking the line, free transforming it to get this one image correct, which will never really be correct, so they hide it with all this gradient and coloring and blurring and all that. And most people online on YouTube who don't want to pay for anything are listening to the kind of shit advice from these people. And they don't really know how to draw, but they think they know how to draw. And then when they come to animation, they think, oh, well, I can draw, so animation will be easy. And they spend all their time thinking it's about volume control and keeping things the same size, as if the animation will take care of itself. Oh, dear, 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 dear. I feel sorry for them, actually. And then they're in this loop. and then basically they don't really understand all of the things that I've been drumming into you on most of my streams for free. They don't want to listen because they just want to stick in their own comfort zone and draw the same old shit which they're used to drawing, right? But if you look at what I'm doing here, I'm in-betweening, I'm not animating. And most people who think they're animating when they're doing those silly drawings is ultimately they are in-betweening. They haven't even begun to animate, so they in-between, they draw a few poses and then make no real considered decisions about what their keys are going to do, what arcs they're going to take. All of the laws that I talk about, primary, secondary action, follow through, overlap and drag, squash and stretch, staging, exaggeration, appeal, arcing, slowing in, slowing out, diming. They don't think about all of those things. All they want to do is quickly draw so they can just then think, oh, now I've got to keep the volume, so I've got to turn the light box on, and that's going to be where I spend all of my time. You see, this is the last thing that I do. And it's not even enjoyable, right? Because the enjoyable part I'm doing really quick. The boring part is tidying the line up and making sure, like, if you want it clean, right? All that kind of stuff. So these horns are going to be 2/3 of the way. So, and most of them aren't even understanding. They don't see. I instinctively know what to put 2/3 of the way, 1/3 of the way, favor, half. What different part will be moving at that speed and that what space that needs. Instinctively, I know that, right? And guess what? That's not a hard thing to do. If you can drive a car, you've already got the instincts to program yourself to have that kind of knowledge. So, again, to my friend in the chat who likes to accuse me of narcissism, no, I'm making all these points to wake people up if they really want it, to wake people up who claim this is their dream, who claim that this is the dream that they want to have. They want to animate, they want to draw, but they're just, it's talent, it's skill, and they've been dealt a bad pack of cards. Bullshit, right? Just learn the right things and do the. If I can do it, you can do it. I know you think that's cliched, but it's true. Unless you have some kind of severe disability in your arms and your hands, or your sight is impaired, or some mental problem that means your basic functioning of your motor skills and all that are not right, then I'll agree that you know it's going to be a little bit more challenging. But if you don't, then you have no excuse, zero excuse. That's the truth. That's my expression. That's the way I teach. That's the way I help. If it's not for you, go elsewhere, and I wish you the best. I truly do. Right. So miraculously, we've got an amazing drawing of the beast when I didn't even try, because I simply in-betweened lines. So let's have a look how that affects. Can you see now, right, how we've got like some timing there, right? So now, here's what we need to do between here and here. We need to come out of this because it's a jerk now. As we've got that realization, it jerks up because of his brow, right? So we need to slow out of that, right? We need to hold this pose for a bit and then slow out of it. So we need to have one between here and here, right? And again, this is like in-betweening, but I'm only drawing the main in-betweens. Like I'm not doing the close together ones. So we need to go between here and here. Now he's changing expression. So if he's changing expression, one thing I like to do is have him blink. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to put it on a favor. I'm not going to put it on a favor. A favor will be too much. I'm going to put it on a third, right? classic 90s Disney timing, right? We're going to put it on a third. Halves and thirds, halves and thirds, right? They do use favorites, it's not like they don't. But you want to keep, you want to have a less staccato, more flowing animation. Use halves and thirds, right? Me, I personally like the staccato, little subtle staccato effects, and anime is rich with that. Sadly, that's pretty much their main way of in-betweening, right? To create an illusion with the least amount of frames, because they got to be sparing with their use of frames, right? So I'm going to, what I'm going to do is, I'm probably going to have to put in another in between because I want to blink him, right? And I can't just flash his eyes. Eye movements are fast, but his eyes are too big, right? I don't want to keep his eyes open, right? I don't want to keep his eyes open. So I'm going to bring his cheeks up. Like that. I'm just going to see what's going on outside because I don't like the sound of what's going on. Nothing. It's all good. So we're going to think about the smile forming on his face. Right. His mouth is open. So we're going to have this. I've got to look at the cheek. This thing. I'm going to come up here like this. So our mouth is almost favoring, but it's not because it's changing its smile. Right? So this, we're going to keep it on a third of the way, that bottom lip, and those teeth are going to be a third of the way. So all this theory of halves and thirds, and then I can jump into that wider smile, right? Right. So we're going to feel the beard come up. Now, if I remember, his ear is behind his horn and it's in front of the horn. So that's my bad, because as I was studying these frames from Google image search, some drawings of the beast had it from different scenes behind and in front, and I didn't think, right? Because I was doing it live on the live stream. I can either change those things or I can just keep them in there because it's such a quick movement. For one frame we can flip it over, right? And get away with that, right? So it's okay. Don't let little things like that be of much concern to you. Back in the day, those things would have me having panic attacks and sweating and getting dizzy because I didn't want my employers to think that I was incapable, you know. Back when I was a young 20-something working in the industry. If I had hindsight, it would be like, slow down the 9 old men. Look at all of the stuff happening there, right? It's fine. Fine. You are who you hang around with. A lot of the people in the UK animation scene were just glorified in-betweeners who got jobs as animators. So they would be looking at things like that and thinking, because that's all they've ever done, was in between another guy's drawings and look at how can I get around this? How can I get around that? They don't really know animation theory. Once you know the theory, once you truly know it, you're all right. Okay. So let's kind of put the ear in front there, actually. a third of the way. Let's ease it in. You should never ease it in. You should either cheat it with one click or the other. So that's a bad thing to say. Now, I am going to put the collar on a half, right? Rather than his head's on 1/3, but the collar is going to be on a half, because the chest on a different speed indicates excitement of breath, right? So we want to do things like that. So you see how my brain is thinking about this is a living creature, right? So this is why you need to draw charts, because an in-betweener wouldn't think like that, right? If you just draw one chart and don't explain that the body needs to be on this, the head needs to be on this, the mouth. Many times I wouldn't want to bother drawing. I would just do a rough drawing like this and say to the in-betweener, look, just stick to my rough, right? I can't, you know. Yes, it is similar to my tiger. You're quite right, Daydream Dragon. I never saw it at the time, but as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, wow. How would 2D animation look with double the frame rate? Awful. It'll look like today's shit. Unnecessary. Glenn Keane did this film called Duet, and he animated it at 24 to 30 frames per second, and then he had to put it at 60 frames per second. And honestly, it wasn't worth all the extra drawing, right? You can find it online, right? If anything, it takes away that special look that hand-drawn animation has, and it'll make it more something like AI would do, right? Don't get out of your skin. Appreciate. Man, look at that timing. This is really starting to come to life now, right? Really adding to the animation. All these subtle facial things, right? That could pass for a scene in the movie right there, just that bit. The lazy body pose hair couldn't. I said he should raise his arm. But this opening bit is incredible, right? You can see the timing there, and that's not even fully in between, right? Right, so let's go ahead and draw in the next one. So there should be an in-between between hair and hair, but I don't want to do it. I am going to do the smile here like that. Right. Let me do it. Let me just show you what I mean. There's enough time. Right, so we need one to slow into this, right? Because this is the end point, right? This is an extra pose, right? This is anticipating the next move. So I need a half between hair and hair, right? Just a half, because we can keep halving on that typical drifty 90s slow in timing, right? So, and that's not bad when I say it like that, but it's a formula, right? It's a formula. It works. Don't, if it ain't Baroque, don't fix it. That's a line from this movie, right? I'm glad I come on these streams after a week of no drawing and animating, because not only do I have to sharpen my skills to keep them in order, by being live gives me that extra motivation that, because of my brand and my persona, telling things in a matter-of-fact way, I've got an extra pressure that if it ain't right, it's gonna, you know, my whole real animator example is gonna come crashing down on me. But when something's perfect, it ain't gonna come crashing down. And that's exactly what the laws that I teach in real animator training are. The law, just like the laws of the universe, the laws of animation are perfect. You want to create the best animation you can, you have to work with those laws, right? You don't work with those laws, then you're going to experience turbulence, right? So what I've done is made sure that the thing that I learned the most is animation law, right? More than anything else. So it's always like riding a bike to some for me, right? Just programming the subconscious with the law of animation. And that's exactly what my system is. Animation law. No hiding behind words like talent, skill, or ability. They're just processes that are used in accordance with the law. I'm not talking about laws which are government man-made policies which the police uphold, right? People have a bad association with the word law because law is often changing policy, right? I'm talking about the laws that govern the universe, or the laws that make certain things the way they are, right? These are the unchanging, foundational, fundamental truths, and animation has 12 of them. And any other one that somebody tries to call a law is simply a variation of one of them. It's like saying let's have a 13th month. Let's have a 13th month. You know, you've got 13 hours but with a 12-hour brackets. The number 12 is a universal number. It's a very important number. And again, it goes into the whole 1 plus 2 is what? 3? Completion. 2 become 1 again, which is when unification occurs. When separation occurs from 1, there's 2. When 2 get joined again, the byproduct makes 3. 1 again. Right. These are universal truths, universal laws that have shaped society for decades. And the 12 laws of animation. I'm not surprised that there are 12 laws. That's what I'm trying to say. Right? Alright, so let's half this mouth. We're not really halving the mouth here, right? Well, we are, but we're not. We're halving it because he's moving with it, right? So I'm keeping the animation simple. I'm not trying to be too clever, right? So that's one instance where I will halve the mouth, right? Because I'm wanting him to move together, right, in one go as a big bulk. There's no subtle facial acting going on as he's rising up, right? We've done all that, right? So that's all I'll do of that. That's that. So he's going to slow in. You mentioned Sword in the Stone, Jungle Book, Lady and the Tramp, some others. They're all look at that squashing now. You can see how the personality is beginning to come into the character, right? All of those early films are great. You'll find great acting in the Seven Dwarfs, you know, acting that is not, you know, not really comparable. You know, it's amazing. Like the drawings are great, but some might find them old-fashioned because they're rounded and, you know, a bit rubber hose at times. But the performances and acting is second to none. of Grumpy and the interplay between those 7 personalities. That's why that movie was a hit. Not because, yes, it was special animation and great, but why it lasted and why the movie broke all, like, we make a feature-length movie. Disney knew what he was doing. He was conveying emotions. He took 7 different emotions and said they all come together to make one person. And that one person is the audience. One person in the audience that can relate to every one of those emotions. And he made sure that those emotions were truly captured in movement, performance, and they interplayed with each other, right? So here now, I'm going to go on a half. I'm going to keep it on a half because I'm going to slow into the smile. We're going to keep the movement as we slow into the smile here like that. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Bambi. Bambi is one of the greatest animated movies ever made. It is an absolute masterpiece. Whether it's the performance of Thumper or Bambi with his scrawny legs figuring out how to walk by the great Mark Davis, or it's the staging of the stags and the ballet-like, opera-like styling of the film with the changing seasons and the nature documentary. It was a nature documentary before there were nature documentaries. People take these old films for granted as if it's a silly, mushy kids film. They just go from memory or vague concepts that have been propagated about it. Sit down and watch the movie as an artist and get prepared to be blown away. Right? All these people watching all these pathetic, modern, unsophisticated things like Game of Thrones with its pretentious language and thinking, oh, that's so mature and so sophisticated. People are very uncultured in some regard with their criticisms of things they know nothing about. And if they only look at their own things that they're contaminating their subconscious with, before passing judgment and pointing the finger at other things. Pinocchio is remarkable. Remarkable piece of filmmaking, remarkable animation. Probably in my top 3. There are scenes in there where the animation errors are very apparent, but there are scenes in there that are just not, that are beyond compare in terms of maturity, in terms of acting, in terms of staging. When that guy figures out he's a donkey and he's double-crossed, that is so dark. He starts transforming into a donkey. Extremely dark, extremely Freudian, also political in terms of the culture, making a jackass out of people, giving them what they want. Where does that sound familiar? Right? So it's an amazing film with amazing animation, amazing acting, amazing staging. Pinocchio is just a masterpiece. The early Disney films, they didn't have the technique or the drawing quite as right as they did later on as they got more experience, but for me, they're still amongst the finest examples of the highest form of animation art that there is. The level of sophistication, Fantasia, Bambi, Pinocchio, even Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the level of sophistication that went into making those films is breathtaking. As I said earlier, Disney was not so interested in bringing in bucks rather than scratching itches, which is why a lot of Pinocchio bombed, Fantasia bombed, Bambi bombed. None of these films were successes. People don't realize that. People who are uneducated don't know that. They just think of Disney as this big commercial machine, this disgusting thing that it's become. But the early films were absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Sleeping Beauty. So here we are, this I mean, I love Beauty and the Beast. I cry when I watch it. The music is amazing. The animation's ropey for about 50% of the movie, but at times it can be some of the finest that there is. Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorite films, but it just feels like McDonald's next to these films that I've mentioned. Just McDonald's. But as I said earlier, you can like McDonald's and there's nothing wrong with it, but just be aware. Just be aware. So here we can see the smile, right? Then we need to slow out one. How are we doing for time? 2:54. I don't think I'll be able to put all of the rough in-betweens, but I think you're beginning to see what the next phase is, right? We like what I mean with the timing, so we're not just going through a bunch of poses really fast, right? That kind of have a relation. So we'll do this drag one here because this is an interesting challenge. Yeah, Rapunzel completely destroyed. I mean, I want to have fond memories of Glenn Keane because he really shaped my childhood, and I do love the man and I love his work, but I have such a disdain for that whole thing. Yeah. I mean, and then it fathered a load of bastard children, as in Frozen, and that ugly style of impish, nasty-looking impish characters don't even look human. But you know, it's a business. They marketed it to little girls, and little girls love Frozen like I've never seen anybody love anything more than little girls loving Frozen. So, you know, it's a business. They want to make money. They know how to do it. They're very intelligent. Frozen characters and their impish faces look just like the dolls, the plastic dolls that they're going to sell. Those dolls never look like the masterpiece of drawing that was Ariel or Pocahontas or Princess Jasmine that were released with the Happy Meals at the time. But with Frozen, when the CG plasticky, you know, imp-like faces, they can get a perfect likeness in the Mattel toy, right? So it's people moan about Saturday morning cartoons being designed for kids. Well, to sell toys. Well, that's exactly what I believe Frozen was designed to do. Then they'll think they'll make an all grown up version with CG for adults and call it live action. It's all, if you're clever, you can see they're kind of conditioning the mind, so they'll feed you with CG and subconsciously call it live action so that you accept awful looking fake things, and then as you keep getting subconsciously used to it, they'll then bombard you with AI, and that becomes your norm. That becomes the normie's idea of what's good and what's expensive and good when it isn't, and you know, current and fashionable and up to date, and that, you know, that was then. It makes me laugh when I see people of today talking about films of the past going, I can't believe how well this holds up. I'm thinking, my God, how can anybody be so dumb? That was when actual art and craft was made. It's not about that, how well that's holding up. It's how that's actually good. I can't believe how you don't see what you're watching in this current era is absolute bullshit. The lowest of the low, the most banal cesspool of, you know, computerized garbage being thrown into people's faces. But as I said, it's irreversible because you can't undo decades of social conditioning without going into neuralistic programming, subconscious, mental, habitual changes. And what average individual is going to want to do that? No, they're going to be happy, doom scrolling, consuming artificially looking stuff. I'm not painting a picture of doom and gloom. I'm painting a picture of optimism, as funny as that sounds, because it separates, it allows artists to really create with purpose for themselves and their own niches and for the people who will appreciate. You don't have to appease. You can find your market now. Like I've got my market, people who are interested in real hand-drawn animation. You don't have to appease all those people. You don't have to like kowtow to the what does Frollo call in Hunchback of Notre Dame, the vulgar, weak, licentious crowd. You don't have to just make content of the most base, banal substance. You know, Beauty and the Beast was good, but it could have been better had they not catered to Happy Meals, you know. They were originally inspired by a Jean Cocteau film, Black and White, which Ridley Scott based his legend on, when they wanted to make it. Although I have to say that version that they were making was by a guy in the UK called Richard Purdom, who was not a particularly good animator or draftsman in my opinion. It was quite bad, you know. I think you can find the story reel of it. So they had the right intention, but the bad execution. So what they ended up making was so much better, you know. But it could have been better. One of the films that I absolutely love for its pure originality, isn't even a hand-drawn film, is exactly what I'm talking about, is The Nightmare Before Christmas. That was Tim Burton that's pure, authentic Tim Burton being Tim Burton, you know. Just wanted to make his story, make it look the way he wanted to make it look, put forward his vision, that typical look, and the music, the whole thing was done in song by Danny Elfman. Very original, bizarre film. I can't see mainstream audiences absolutely loving it, but the cult niche of people who truly appreciated it for its uniqueness have made that film last. And that's exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about authenticity. Authenticity is the key. If you're authentic in your expression, and that's what Miyazaki is, he's authentic. There's hundreds of other anime that, in my opinion, is drawn better than Miyazaki, it moves better than Miyazaki. Not hundreds, but it doesn't feel authentic. It just feels like they're trying to be a live-action movie, and it's a cheap, bad, way of making a live-action film. Like Ghost in the Shell 1 is great. Ghost in the Shell 2 just felt like a computer experiment. I still love it. I still love the design and some of the sequences in there, but it just feels like an experiment. It doesn't have the authenticity. It's a bad example because I think it is authentic in many ways. That guy is a bit of an auteur. Is it Masamune Shiro or something? I don't know his name offhand. So I take that back, actually. The more I talk about it, the more I like it. But there's tons of these things that just look like they're, you know, just cheap live-action movies or well-drawn comics. But the Ghibli thing has their own authentic feel. It just feels like it's got an identity. It's got a brand. Hunchback of Notre Dame is a gem. Yeah, I like that. Unfortunately, the gargoyles just devastated that film. I feel sorry for whoever had to do Gaston's chest hair in that one shot. Actually, it doesn't matter because the chest hair, he doesn't have to keep volume. It's a trick. It doesn't have to be all in the same place. I also love 90s Disney movies. Hunchback, Beauty and the Beast, Mulan, Hercules, The Lion King, Aladdin. I like them. I used to love them. But as I'm approaching my 50s, I like them a lot less. Treasure Planet and Atlantis I did love at the time, not so much now. Sleeping Beauty is amazing, absolutely amazing. Alpha Proto, yes, the same thing happened with Flash animation after the generation the audience grew up with it. And yeah, that's exactly, it's conditioning the audience for the next wave of cheapening, economizing creative content. Do you like Ratatouille? No, I can't stand it. I really like it as a movie and one of the best 3D. Everybody loves Ratatouille. My brother, my wife, my mother, my daughter. I've begrudgingly sat down and watched it with them more than once because they really wanted to see it, but I really, really, I don't think I have a kind word to say about it. But hey, we're all different. Tim Burton movies to the best of his own beat of his own drum. Yeah, absolutely. Which is why, funnily enough, I turned Tim Burton down 3 times. I got approached by his people to work on Frankenweenie, but I was in a happy place. I was in charge of a small project, and it was better to be a big fish in a small pond, even if you're earning almost half the amount less, more than half less than what they would have given me on Frankenweenie. But I really grew doing the project that I was doing. So I really wanted to work with Tim Burton, but I guess not enough. Not more than what I needed was to do that other job, so I didn't jump ship. Okay, let's do... I think that's it. I've done the first half. There's more slowing in stuff to be done on this half, but you can kind of see 3 hours in where we're going with the timing on this thing, right? It comes up. Let me just so you can see it better, let me just blacken in these frames, right? It doesn't all flash. Dun, 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 flash. Oh, he saved every one of us. Flash. It destroyed the animation industry. Flash. It killed 2D. All right. Only a few of you will find that funny. Right, okay, right. So, there, right? I don't think I'll bother cleaning that up. I'll keep it rough. I'm not going to do anything with this animation. It's purely for these live streams. Right? Well, we can see, but this actually needs a lot more slowing in than what I've got, right? But just those extra frames give you a feel of it. This will make a good Instagram piece of Instagram content. Everybody likes this character, so let's see. So I'm going to see it through. A bit of a waste of my time, really, but I guess it's social mediaing. All right. Let us... I mentioned Real Animated Training Library. I'll quickly mention it again. If you are serious about becoming a proper animator, go to ambanimation.com, click Real Animated Training. I don't know what's going on with this unlock. I've got to fix my GDPR plugin, because I hate that. I hate having to all this protection, unlock, but there you go. That's the times we live in. So, all right, so you click join now. You can read this page. It's a new page, basically explaining about the training library and who I am, what I do. Click join now. And basically you've got the option to get these 2 bundles, and you can unblock all those and they work. So these are courses that you can buy separately. Now at the moment, if you experience problems like not being able to see the button to buy, just send me a message in the contact form and I'll give you an invoice, because there's some the whole learning management system plugin for this website is experiencing issues which they deny, but I'm going to have to wait for them to update it to sort that out, because every possible thing has been done. But the training archive bundles, you can save yourself a ton of money by clicking on those, and this explains to you what's in the bundle, so and how much it is. And the payment process for the bundles is very different. You fill out your name and your email and you submit a form, and you receive an email which will give you a payment link. Now, because of the trust involved and the price, I like to personally manage. Well, I'm having to personally manage them all at the moment, thanks to that bloody plugin. But I like to personally manage these bundles. So, if we're in the same time zone or similar time zones where I'm awake and you're awake, I will enroll you immediately. But if I'm sleeping and you've paid, don't panic. There's a note in the email that it might give me 24 hours. It never takes 24 hours because I don't sleep for 24 hours, right? But it takes about, I just give myself that window just to reassure you that, look, your order is being processed. Right, I'm sleeping. When I wake up, I'll process it, right? There you go. That's that's the bundle thing, right? I don't like to automate that because automation leaves room for error. Like things going to the spam folder and stuff like that. And I don't want people who have put that much amount of trust and faith in me and my training and who believe in what I'm doing and they really want to try and proactively help themselves. I don't want them feeling uneasy about the move they've just made. So I'm like, listen, I'm handling this personally. Just fill out the form, give me your name, give me your details, and we will sort it out there. There's going to be pages on this website which will be featuring the Gracie Goodbear crowdfunder, and that's what's being worked on at the moment. So there you go. I'm having trouble purchasing the beginner archive. Okay, yes, this is exactly what's going on. Culture Scene Art. So if I open an incognito window, let me explain to you what's happening with the website. And a load of technicians have looked at it. I brought in some external technicians. See, I'm accepting and saving my preferences. And we're all stumped, right? So the developers, I've contacted the developers of the plugin. So say that you want to, you can't afford the bundle or you don't want the bundle. You just want basics and that's it, right? So it's got the price here and you click enroll now. Now over here it should say buy now, right? It's not showing. And that's because, I'll tell you why, this system is based on PayPal and PayPal have phased out something called standard to checkout. But that's nothing to do with you, right? That's my problem to solve. But in the workaround is if you want to buy one of these archives as a standalone, even if you're a training library member and you want to buy the new archive, which is how to animate a scene, which is the Badger, right? Here, all of those Badger scenes that we did is in the edutainment archive. The workaround is to go to the contact AMB thing and message me with the exact archive that you want, and I will send you a PayPal invoice, right? And you can go and do that, but you give me your name and your email so I can create your account, right? Because normally the automation process is you buy it and PayPal sends you back and you get automatically enrolled in that archive, right? So these individual archives are not as much of a lump sum as the bundles, so they're automated, but not right now, as you can tell, right? So thank you. I'm very sorry to you, culture scene art, having trouble with that. It is frustrating for me as well, because it's affecting the flow of people joining the library. But you know, I've explored all avenues. I'm still exploring avenues. I'm still exploring avenues and it will be sorted. But the workaround in the meantime is to reach out to me on the message in the contact form, and I will give you a PayPal invoice and manually enroll you into that archive. Right, so let's see before I go what is here. I think Gilmer impressed me with his version of Pinocchio. Yes, I actually want to see it, but I haven't seen it. Pinocchio is actually a book, and it's a lot. The book covers exactly what I'm interested. I'm interested in Gnosticism. Okay, thank you, Michael. I've got your email. I will deal with that after the live stream. I will send you the invoice, and we'll get going. So awesome. Welcome to the Real Animator Training Library. I'm so glad that you have made a decision to move forward with your training. And my advice to you when you study that archive, very quickly, because this is important, somebody's joined, so I can use this opportunity to tell him how to do it. Let's go into that archive right now, actually. Scene. All right, so once you are in the archive, you will have your dashboard, and you will go to your account, and you will see your one. I'm the creator, so I've got them all. So you'll see your one archive here, right? Your basics, right? And normally, if you want to buy another one, you basically go to the archive selection page, and it opens up the ones that you want, but we're having that problem at the moment, right? Support is here, the group is here, the Facebook group, but in your account you'll have basics, right? So now the important thing when you study the basics is you basically go through each one of these lectures, right? So bloody compliance thing. Each one of these lectures you watch and you follow along. They're like just to do one bouncing ball, that's 1.5 hours, all right? And it's done in a step. It's not done like my YouTube live streams or my. I'm literally drawing a ball and waiting for you to draw it with me, right? And I'm explaining to you everything. So you basically, you can blow up the video here, right? You basically follow the whole thing, right? Step by step. And then once you've done that, you move on to the next one, right? You take notes and you make sure that you're following along with it. And then we move from a bouncing ball into a jumping ball. What's the difference? Same thing, 1 hour, 40 minutes, just to do a ball, right? I can come and give you a 10-minute demo of the same thing, but what will you learn, right? In some of these early lectures, probably about half an hour or so is wasted on chat. So most of the lectures after this, because some of these lectures were recorded 7 years ago when I was building this archive. So here about 10 minutes is chat. I stopped including the chat to stop wasting time and to focus only on the lecture, right? So these first few lectures, you may get a bit of chat at the end. It's fun if you want to listen to that, but I don't just focus on the lecture, which is what we wanted. So we move on to pendulum swings, and you do the same thing, right? 1 hour, 58 minutes, right? So about 1.5 hours is spent on the pendulum swing, right? I'm looking at the thumbnail. I stopped including chat probably halfway through this basics archive. As I was building it, I was finding my way as the best way to teach people. And to be honest, the chat deviates from the lecture. It goes like we're talking now, all kinds of things. So just focus on the lecture and follow each one step by step, right? And you will move on from the pendulum to a basic walk cycle. Now, this is where things start getting really powerful. You will just focus on the legs for 1 hour, 20, again we got a bit of chat. So for 1 hour, right, you will focus on the legs. Only the legs and the hips, right? For another hour and 30 minutes, you will focus on the body and the head, right? Or just the body, I think. I'm drawing the head in the video, so the body and the head. On part 3, you will focus on the arms, right? And this is where we started getting rid of the chat as I'm scrolling through the thumbnail. So by the time we get to the next walk cycle video, you'll basically have no more of the kind of like edutainment style chat thing, and where we start zoning in. So can you see, you move from a walk cycle into a standard walk cycle, right? Meaning you're going to learn a bit more, you're going to build on it, but you're going to do it the same way. Just the legs, just the body and the head, then the arms. See, the arms are going to tell you how a swinging pendulum that you learned early works. Can you see how powerful this is, right? You're going to learn how to turn the ball and the pendulum into a stick figure that walks. And you're going to learn about timing charts, halves and thirds, and all those things. You learn that from the get-go, to be honest with you. Then you learn about jogging, right? So the same thing. You see, it's like lifting weights. You're going to go through each one of these videos. Each one of these videos is about an hour to an hour and a half without the chat, right? You're going to go through each one of these videos. There's no more chat here. Yeah, no more chat. Just a little bit of talking about the library at the end, and that's it, right? So you're going to go through the jogging the same way. You're going to go through run cycle the same way. You're going to go through... let me just sort out this stupid GDP compliance crap. It's really pissing me off. Right, so... Anyway, right, that's one of the things about running a business, really. So, you have these, you go to a front walk cycle. So you know what a walk looks like from the side. Now, Daydream Dragon asked me about arcs, right? So arcs have figures of 8, right? So you don't really see that unless you're really trying to put it into the profile, which I do. But in the front view, we really spell it out for you. And then you learn the run cycle from the front view. Now, come on, I clicked GDP compliance. There's obviously a caching thing about this. So, part 4 is the run cycle from the front. Now, part 5, we do head turns, basic head turns. Now, people talk about form and volume, right? But the funny thing is, most people would struggle to keep form and volume with this simple stick figure. Their eyes will be floating like this and all that. How on earth do they think that they can keep form and volume with a complex illustration, really, if you can't move a basic thing like that? So you do a varied head turn and then you do an overview. And that completes the archive, right? That completes the archive. So all of those videos are done in a way where you basically have to do them in a step-by-step manner, over-the-shoulder manner. It's not like a YouTube video where you just watch and you kind of feel like I've got it and I'm going to make up my own thing and follow along. No, real animated training is different. You are basically just going step by step and doing exactly what I'm telling you to do, and taking in the information. And then once you have finished the archive, then you're free to consolidate those things, right? It's like people take art for granted. You wouldn't try and do surgery your own way unless you'd learnt the fundamentals. You wouldn't try and even do a push-up or a pull-up. You'll get back pain and neck pain. You need to do proper form, right? So people just think they can do anything with art and animation. But then be prepared for the consequences, So thank you for applying to join the Basics Archive. It's given me the opportunity to share with you what you're about to be getting into. So it's just another reminder in case you really want to commit to that kind of dedication. It's not for everybody, it's fun. See how much fun I'm having talking nonchalantly while busting out the beast on a live stream with the movie quality animation that can sit in the movie, right? telling you how it's better than most Ghibli, and I'm having fun. But it's like investing in stocks. You know, the payoff comes a bit long term. You're not going to be drawing drawing your anime fights or your appealing characters. You got to learn these things. You got to learn these things in order to get to that level. So it's not. It's, as I said, it's a rite of passage. People play with other tutorials and other people out there who kind of give them what they want. They feed to their surface dopamine. Real animator training is designed to feed to your subconscious. It whispers secrets to your soul on how to animate, rather than just your base desires. Yes, Del Toro's Pinocchio was definitely looked amazing. I haven't got round to seeing it yet. I mean, Pinocchio is a story based around the whole ethereal kind of Pinocchio in Italian refers to the pineal gland, like the pineal. The third occhio means eye, and pinna I can't remember where, but it refers to basically the third eye, and the third eye is the whole story of the false man, the Christ-like consciousness, the story of the false man, the wooden boy becoming real, right? So the world of matter versus the world of spirit, the blue fairy representing all those things. So it's based on an Italian novel, and I will get round to watching his version. Actually, it does look interesting. Why didn't you like it? Is it the designs of I just don't like that Pixar Brad Bird style of storytelling. I don't like it where it just feels unauthentic to me. It feels like the characters are all playing up for the audience. Like the performances don't feel natural to me. It feels like almost like when the guy's sitting down and talking, he's talking to the audience. That kind of, I guess it's a sort of Woody Allen kind of thing. I mean, if you're into that sort of thing, I just don't like it, and I just don't like that kind of humor. I don't like that kind of postmodern humor. I guess I like things to be a bit more. I guess what it is it's not European enough for me, even though it's based in France. It's like that's what's lacking in modern Disney fairy tales, and it started happening in the 90s. You see, American history is based on European settlers, whether they're from France, Spain, England, Russia, all over Europe, and these people were heavily involved in making films in the 40s, 30s, 50s, 20s. You know, Charles Chaplin was English, and they brought the culture and sensibilities of their high art into what they created, Hollywood. Now, even then, the Europeans at the time were poo-pooing on Hollywood. They were calling, like the Cahiers du Cinéma in France, developed a theory called the auteur theory, saying only one or two are good, like Hitchcock and John Ford. And, you know, you had people like John Ford, the Ford Western, and D.W. Griffiths, who's problematic, but they were filmmakers of the time documenting things through their eyes. So it's easy to look back. But they were talking about their very own American history and the American land. But when you were talking about things based in Rome, like or Ben-Hur, or Julius Caesar, or Cleopatra, or Knights of the Round Table, or all these things that, all these Grimm's fairy tales that Disney was based on, you can't separate their origin. They were European. And a lot of the artists had that connection with that aspect of their psyche. And that's why I felt the work was a lot more authentic. I love the 80s, and I love American 80s TV. I was raised on it. I'm working on a project right now called Alpha Man, which is a love letter to that stuff. But if I'm fair and if I'm honest and I'm taking a retrospective look, the 80s and 70s and 80s was around about the time where the commerce started coming in and the culture started changing. And kind of taking out the class. They were still looking at art, They were still trying to like do graphic design and looking at Damien Hirst and not Damien Hirst, Andy Warhol and Bridget Riley and pop art and all that kind of stuff. They were trying to be contemporary with their own, also their American had forging their own culture, their own identity. But the more and more the years passed, we are where we are now, where there's no authenticity. Frozen feels like Saved by the Bell. It feels like an American teen prom. There's nothing about the original Hans Christian Andersen bass in there at all. Same with Tangled. They all feel like Rapunzel looks like she's not allowed to go to the prom, and the jock who's the best football player has come with his modern haircut, with his shiny perfume and makeup, even though it's an animation. Ratatouille for me feels like we're kind of like we're trying to do an intelligent sort of batteries not included skit, but we don't have the authenticity because we've taken it out of America and we've taken it into France, and we're giving it a very modern McDonald's interpretation of French culture through American eyes, and it's just very disingenuous and unauthentic to me, and and the CG animation is something that's already a turn off. That whole design and look it's a challenge for me to watch. Anyway, so if I'm gonna get past that, then I need some sincerity and some depth to the story. How to Train Your Dragon, on the other hand, I can enjoy. It's got that typical like everyone's a father, they don't swear, but all the Scottish people and all this very unauthentic. But it's got the charm to it. It's got that charm of 80s fantasy movies like Dragon Slayer and The Black Cauldron and all that kind of stuff. So it's got that charm to it. So I'll forgive it. But Ratatouille, no. I can barely tolerate it. Oh, I mean, who will watch? I won't even watch Disney's remake if somebody was to give me how much? If somebody was to give me like, I don't know, $1,000 to watch Disney's remake of Pinocchio, I don't think I'd take it. I really don't. I don't think I'd put myself through that. I love the original Pinocchio too much. If it's more than 1,000, then they're obviously paying me for something. I saw in one video you mentioned the starting with anatomy only before animation is a mistake. Depends. It's not a mistake. It's not a mistake, but it depends where your mindset is. If your mindset is I want to draw the human body and move the human body, great, but then you're going to have to hold back because you're going to have to draw bouncing balls and swinging pendulums before you can start applying that stuff. Anatomy learned as basic shapes. Starting, if you start at the left end and you start at the right end and you keep walking, you're going to, you're going to meet in the middle, or you're going to go on the other end, and it's the same pole. It's the same, not the same pole, it's the same object, but the other end of the ball, right? So, as long as you work with the understanding and awareness, what I mean about is a lot of people don't learn anatomy the right way. They learn anatomy to be illustrators and fine artists, which is alright, but animators, animation is a little bit different. As you can see with all the arcing and all of that. Ask an illustrator and a fine artist to animate something. They may muscle through it, and to the average person it'll look like a good drawing of a body moving, but to an animator it's like, ay. Okay, right. See you, Red Fox. Nice to have you on my stream. Okay, Caltrician Art. Awesome. You're in the right place. We don't really talk about software because if you really want to make a discussion about software, give up learning hand-drawn animation and just use AI. AI is the future of software. You know, you won't need to tinker about with software when you're using AI. If software is real animator statement. Software for me is like the toilet. It's necessary to keep my house clean and to efficiently do away with the waste product. But I don't talk about the brand. I don't talk about the make. I just make sure that it's functioning and it works, right? The real thing that's important is the 12 laws of animation, drawing, the drawing skills. You can do all of this, what I'm doing here, with any basic program that allows you to add one frame against another on a timeline with a basic light box. And you can put a frame in the middle of it, and you've got a basic brush tool. Any program, it doesn't matter. Many of my students have software and they choose to draw on paper because drawing on paper is infinitely better, but it's more time consuming, and I can't record the screen and give instruction as well with it. So also, if you want to be an independent filmmaker, to scan in each drawing and clean all the paper marks off it and all that, and make sure that everything's registered without shaking around, can be troublesome. So that's where software helps, but as to what software it is, it's not important. It's about as important as the toilet that you use to defecate in. And I use that example knowingly, just to make people aware of what they should be focusing on. Otherwise, you're just, AI is here, and you'll never out software. So learning how to use the free transform or build a rig to make an uncanny sliding movement, just use AI. It'll do it 10 times better and 10 times faster. You want to draw it? Then it really doesn't matter. AI can never do what you do. They're your marks, unique to you. It has to access your work to try and copy it, but then it'll bring somebody else's stuff to it. Your work is unique. It's unique to you. The marks you make are unique to you. Hand-drawn animation is the true power that we have in this day and age. He's literally using a brush and a eraser. Thank you. Thank you. Postmodernism from French. Foucault. This mindset is what keeps the big banks investing in cheap AI CG instead of real animators. Please don't be rude. Don't be rude to Ragam, right? I use language like the toilet about the software, but people don't know, right? I'm living in this world where I filter out all of the news. I don't even care what's happening. I'm an Englishman living in New Zealand. There's all this talk of identity cards and all. I don't care. I just don't let it come into my system. I live in my little bubble of the things that interest me. Some people call it their vortex. And that's how I choose to live in this world. But then there are plenty of people out there who have a very different worldview and vortex. And for the past 20, 30 years, all they've been taught is software and software and software. It's not their fault. It really isn't. So I'm here to kind of say, please don't focus on that, right? If people keep asking me what software, I never moan at the person. It sounds like I moan sometimes, but I make sure that it's always about the software and the mentality of the person, not the mentality of the person asking the question, the mentality of the people playing with the software. I call them automators, and I lovingly mock them, but I never mock the person asking the question, because they just don't know. They're on this channel trying to help themselves, trying to look for a way out, look for a light in the black, look for some kind of escape from the tunnel. So if they still want to go to software after that, that's the consequences. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. Compare Frozen to the Snow Queen animated 40s. Exactly. Shrek is very postmodern, but it still actually has. I can't tolerate Shrek. I've never seen it. I never will see it. I'd watch Ratatouille probably in less than a heartbeat over Shrek. Yeah. But anyway, Shrek just looks too ugly to me. I would rather watch Hoodwinked than Shrek. I don't like Stretch and Squash in 3D, CG or AI at all. Yeah, it doesn't look right. I see. So would you recommend keeping animation principles in mind right from the jump? Always. If you're going to learn animation, then you got to learn the laws. Simple as. You don't go to drive a car on the road and then just say, I'm going to drive in anywhere I want on the roundabout. I'm going to go whatever the traffic light says. I'm not going to single. I'm going to suddenly break in the road. That's how most people approach animation. And that's why what they do is quite frankly shit. Paul Kiro, yeah, agree, because it literally breaks the constraints in the rigs and animators have to work with their hands tied. I never watched a Shriek movie. Yeah, Shriek is a great. Hotel Transylvania has good squash and stretch. Yeah, I can't say. I mean, I did like Samurai Jack a little bit, but I can't say I'm a fan of this guy Jendi and this new thing he's done with everybody proudly posting it on LinkedIn. I mean, it's got no class. I mean, you look at Lady and the Tramp and you look at that. Okay, some people might prefer that, but that's the world we live in right now. World of OnlyFans, and a world where you can go into a chemist shop and dildos are all in front of you to buy. I couldn't believe that. That's the world we live in now. So that's I'm not against it. I mean, I'm making my own Gracie Goodbear. People are calling me a pervert, right? So I don't want to be a hypocrite, but I'm just looking at some of the clips of what people are posting on LinkedIn. I proudly worked on this movie about this dog, and I'm like, really? I mean, the guy gets greenlit to make a movie with hand drawn, and this was his subject matter. I'm not comparing it to Samurai Jack. I'm comparing it to like he's got some new movie about a dog, a virgin dog that wants to get screwed, right? And I don't even know what it's called. It just looks awful. And there are a lot of big name animators who've worked on this film because they want to be a part of it. And it's like, to me, it's like, really, this guy was working on Beauty and the Beast. This guy was working on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This guy was working on all these things. And now, you're basically, this is what it's come to? This is what a decline, what a fall from grace. What a disgusting fall from grace. Yeah, that is a good anime. So yeah, I mean, more power to Jendi. I can't even say his name. The guy who made Samurai Jack, that's the only thing he's ever made I like. He likes Conan the Barbarian. I like Conan the Barbarian myself. And he's doing what he wants to do. And I applaud him, congratulate him, respect him, admire him for that. But I wouldn't really watch his stuff. Not my thing. And good luck to him, but what can I say? So that's it. All right. And on that note, for those of you who are about to draw, I salute you. Do your work, not just your work and no more, but that little bit more for the lavishing's sake. That little bit more that's worth all the rest. And if you doubt as you must, if you suffer as you must, do your work, put your heart into it, and the skies shall clear. And then from your very doubt and suffering shall be born the supreme joy of life. That R in the background, always reminder of keeping it real. Thank you for joining me on this live stream. I'm not sure when I'm going to be online for the next. I've got a lot of ideas. I really want to live stream, but there's a lot of real animator training library, how can we say, office style work that's holding me back from coming online sooner. So I'll be back, but maybe not for a full week and a half or so, or something like that. Who knows? Next thing you'll see me streaming the next day because I'm procrastinating from doing the stuff I don't want to do. Thank you for joining me on the stream. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.